out a pardon for yourself or any other additional members of the family?
For myself?
Yes, sir.
Well, what did I pardon myself for?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I have no contemplation of pardoning myself for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
As a massive exodus looms at the Department of Justice, Joe Biden makes a desperate last-minute power play shielding his allies and family from the incoming Trump administration, unleashing a barrage of preemptive pardons. This isn't just your typical end-of-term clemency. This is a political grenade lobbed at the feet of justice. After 4 long years of Biden and his party damning the very action the scoundrel Biden just took.
The only reason I know to ask for a pardon is because you think you've committed a crime.
The president's reportedly asking his staff whether he can issue preemptive pardons for himself, his family members, Rudy Giuliani. There's a simple answer: no. No, Mr. President, that would be a gross abuse of the presidential pardon authority.
The precedent of giving blanket pardons, preemptive blanket pardons, on the way out of an administration, I think is a precedent we don't want to set.
And you've communicated that to the President Biden?
Communicated it both publicly and privately to the administration.
Pardons for Anthony Fauci, the man who must face justice for the 20 million plus taken out by his and General Mark Milley, who botched the Afghanistan withdrawal and referred to Trump as a fascist.
I said, hell, General, I'll probably give you a call, but we're not going to attack you. Trust me, we're not going to attack you. These are two great powers, and I am doing my best to transmit the president's intent, President Trump's intent, to ensure that the American people are protected from an incident that could escalate.
I understand your intent, but I think you articulating that you would tell him, you would give him a call, I think is worthy of your resignation. I just think that's against our country, that you would give our number one adversary that information and tell him that.
Of course, Milley authorized the use of heat and sound-based direct energy weapons against protesters in 2020.
We know for a fact now that General Mark Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff back under the previous Trump administration, we know that in June of 2020, during the riots in the Summer of Love here in D.C., he actually directed and ordered and authorized the use of both heat and sound directed energy weapons to be used against the protesters in that event.
And the J6 committee, who hid evidence and ran the false narrative against Trump and the J6 political prisoners.
Biden issue pardons for the January 6th committee members, including yourself?
No, I don't want it. But the second you take a pardon, it looks like you're guilty of something. I'm guilty of nothing besides bringing the truth to the American people and in the process embarrassing Donald Trump, because for 187 minutes he sat there and did absolutely nothing and showed how weak and scared he truly was. So no, I don't want it.
But it doesn't stop there. Biden extended this shield of immunity to his own family, his brothers, James and Francis, his sister, Valerie, and her husband, John, among others. This comes fresh after the pardon he granted to Hunter Biden. As I predicted many times, the Biden crime family has officially received their pardon.
What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody...
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like, when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was... there was something on its face that was wrong. There's nothing on its face that was wrong.
Biden's defense, he claims there are exceptional circumstances, painting a picture of his loved ones and allies as victims of political vendettas. Biden says these pardons aren't an admission of guilt, but the timing and the breadth of these pardons suggests otherwise. They were issued in the final hours of Biden's presidency. Now, with DOJ lawyers reportedly planning their exit, it's clear that the legal establishment is bracing for impact. The Department of Justice is about to undergo a seismic shift, and rest assured, pardon or no pardon, treason and crimes against humanity have nowhere to hide. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Governor Newsom, wildfires have destroyed millions of acres of the state. displaced countless amounts of family. Do you take responsibility for any of this, and is there anything more you think you could have done?
Not really. I think these fires were very devastating. I think the full scope of what actually has happened, we're not there yet. Okay, these people's houses are just destroyed. People are suffering, people are sad, but we're Californians. We're gonna push through, and where we're going, the vision is 10 times bigger than anybody else can even imagine.
Former President Trump has recently criticized your leadership, saying that you failed California. What's your response to him, and what does the future of California look like?
To be honest with you, I try to block that rhetoric, because the words that come out of his mouth, all the words out of his lips, they don't mean anything to me. He needs to use these more, because the future of California is bright. It's so bright. When you really try to look at it, I mean, really, really look at how bright it is, you're gonna need shades to live in California 24 hours a day.
Critics are saying that you're all hand gestures and no action. What's your response to that?
I think people are wrong. Okay, they need to wake up. I speak with passion. I speak with fire, no pun intended. And I feel if I use my hands a lot, people won't be focused on the lies that are coming out of my mouth, because I lie a lot. So I want to distract them with my hands.
Interesting. Wait.
What?
Where'd my gum go?
To be honest with you, I have no idea. Would you look at that? You know what? This gum is just like California. It's sticky, it's resilient, and it'll bounce back.
You're a scumbag.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Doug Diamond here, and you have reached another Diamond Report Live. Thought you guys would enjoy that video. Governor Gavin Newsom, there he was in his prime, in his forte of explaining things with his hands. If you cut off his hands, he would not be able to speak. That's the old saying. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. Anyway, I thought that video was really funny. That was provided by a Twitter account called Valuetainment Media. So we'll look at that a little bit closer. As far as if you guys happen to be on X, we will mention it and how you can go retweet it and see some of their other work as well. I thought that was really, really well done and super funny. Slapping the guy every time he moves his hands and ends up with the gum in his fingers. Too crazy, and not all that far off, actually, either. All right, it's Doug Diamond here. Hope you guys have had a great week, and I know it's been a super busy and crazy week, not only around here, but just worldwide. It seems like Trump is on fire. He is literally, I guess you'd call it, what's the old term, barn burning? He's just lighting it up everywhere. I mean, not all good, not 100% good for sure, but a lot of it is. So we will get into some of the details of that tonight and take a look at everything. This is the Diamond Report Live. It is January 26th, 2025, 10:09 p.m. Central Time. And let's take a look at the news. The first thing I found here was actually a funny meme here. Let me zoom it out so you can see it a little better. This desk hasn't seen so much action since Bill Clinton. So there you go. Some more funnies. Anyway, very true, too. Very true. And it's probably a different type of action, I'm guessing, is what they're talking about. Anyway, I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, and then Gateway Pundit article. Here's the full list of presidential actions Trump signed on day one. So this is just day one. On day one, by the end of the day, he'd already done vastly more work than fake President Biden did in 4 years. So he'd already beat him in about 20 hours, something like that. Trump wasted no time on his first day back in office, signing a series of executive actions aimed at restoring national sovereignty, economic prosperity, and public safety. These bold initiatives mark a stark departure from the Biden regime's globalist policies and signal a return to the principles that put American people first. Here is the list of presidential actions Trump signed on Monday following his inauguration. Many of you guys may already be familiar with this, but note all of these. There's only 40 listed here. I want to say he may have done like 100 or 200 executive orders on that first day. Again, he did more work in the first 20 hours than Biden did in 4 years, for sure. And quite, I guess you could say quite a different style of work as well. So things like withdrawing the United States from the World Homicide Organization. This one right here, if it sticks, is huge. Huge. I know it's something Dr. Rima has been talking about. James Roguski's been talking about for years. We had him on Lost Arts Radio multiple times talking about exiting the WHO. That's what it's about, the World Homicide Organization. We don't need to be part of that at all. And it looks like, hopefully, Trump's going to pull the U.S. out of it. We'll see how it all actually shakes out. But hopefully that will be something that actually transpires. Application of Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act to TikTok. I mentioned TikTok last week. Granting pardons and commutation of sentences for certain offenses relating to J6. That's a huge one. So even if you don't like anything that Trump ever does or says, one thing we can probably agree on is that many, actually 100%, of the J6ers, the people who were framed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time because they happen to have their cell phones on them and were tracked using the surveillance grid, they were there on January 6, 2021, and then have subsequently been railroaded into jail, basically, for the last several years. In some cases, these people were all innocent. And one of the first things he did was he commuted the sentences of a few people and then pardoned the vast majority of them. I think there were 1,500 people who now have their lives back. So I think that's a pretty big deal. And that's something he said he was going to do right away, and he did. He kept his word. Putting America first with international environmental agreements. I think we mentioned some of that last week. Delivering emergency price relief for American families and defeating the cost of living crisis. Not exactly sure what that's about, but obviously it's the current economy. But as far as what an actual executive order can do, I'm not exactly sure on the details of that. But obviously he's trying to help the economy as much as possible. Hiring freeze, regulatory freeze, pending review. Return to in-person work. That's for the federal government, for the U.S. government employees. Ending the weaponization of the federal government, restoring freedom of speech, and ending federal censorship across social media. So that's the first 10 that I mentioned there, and there's 40 on this page, and I think it was like 100 or 200 that he actually signed in the first 24 hours or so. So anyways, I just wanted to mention that in case you happen to miss it. But yeah, it's quite a list. And we'll take a look at a few of these things in a little bit more detail as we move forward tonight throughout the broadcast. So, presidential actions. I happened to go to the whitehouse.gov site just to see how it had been retooled. And many of them, although I don't think all of them, are listed here as well. And we'll link to this in the Substack post, but it's whitehouse.gov, obviously. And then you just click on presidential actions is where it is. So a lot of what I just read, in addition to some of the other presidential actions, are listed here. And there's actually, right now, a total of 7 pages, 6 full pages, plus a couple more on a 7th page. So that's another 62 or so that are listed here on the website, whitehouse.gov. So very interesting, presidential actions. So that got me a little curious. We've talked before on this broadcast about, what are executive orders and are they, really that important? I think the answer to that just sort of depends. I do think that in general, they are very important. And let's take a look at the actual Britannica definition and just see what it has to say here. Britannica.com, what is an executive order? In the U.S., the president acts as both head of state and head of government. Although the office gives its holder a tremendous amount of power, it does not grant the ability to enact laws. Unlike the prime minister in a parliamentary system, the U.S. president does not need to command a majority in the legislature. In fact, it is commonplace for one or both houses of Congress to be controlled by the opposing party, which in this case, you could say technically it's not, but it might as well be. It's kind of where it is at this point. Article 1 of the Constitution specifies that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in Congress of the United States, and this separation of powers was one of the guiding principles of the framers of the Constitution. The powers of the presidency were defined far less explicitly, leaving it to individual office holders to shape and frequently expand the scope of presidential authority. In lieu of lawmaking abilities, presidents historically have used executive orders to promote their policy agendas. Along with proclamations and memoranda, executive orders are the president's primary tool for the management and mobilization of the vast resources of the federal government. Broadly speaking, executive orders tend to have more dramatic and longer-lasting effects than either proclamations or memoranda. Obvious exceptions being the Emancipation Proclamation, the Neutrality Proclamation that effectively terminated the Franco-American Alliance, and Proclamation 4311, in which Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon. In practice, there is little difference between executive orders and proclamations beyond the style conventions particular to each document. According to tradition, executive orders close with the president's name followed by the White House, quote unquote, and the date in a month, day, and year format. Proclamations conclude with the words, quote, in witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand, end quote, followed by the date as well as the year of the independence of the United States as measured by the number of years since 1776. So interesting, huh? Critics of executive orders, typically members of the opposing party, often characterize their use as circumvention of the legislative process. In truth, many of the thousands of orders issued by presidents since Washington, as in George Washington, have dealt with the mundane operations of the executive branch. The use of executive orders as an instrument of policy truly took off with Teddy Roosevelt, who issued more than 1,000 executive orders during his 2 terms. Taking office in the most desperate years of the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt issued more than 3,700 executive orders, and a total that exceeded that of the next 10 presidents combined. Of course, he was president longer than any of them as well. Among FDR's orders was the notorious Executive Order 9066, which authorized the forced relocation and internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans. So that was an executive order as well. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up and mention at least the Britannica definition of what is an executive order, because there seems to be some confusion out there amongst some people. Is he making laws or what's he doing exactly? So that, I think, helps explain things a little bit. All right, let's take a look at HalTurnerRadioshow.com. Just a couple of headlines I came across a few minutes ago. Nuclear incident training in New York. Another exercise, nuclear incident training exercise, a public alert put out by the FBI. It says over the next several days, a large-scale, multi-agency nuclear incident training exercise will take place in the vicinity of Schenectady, New York, and surrounding communities of Albany, Saratoga, and Schenectady. According to the FBI, from January 26th, today, through the 31st, Departments of Defense, Department of Energy, National Nuclear Security Administration, never heard of that one, the FBI, the DHS, and state and local partners will conduct the exercise in several areas of Schenectady and Albany, Saratoga, and Schenectady counties as part of a series of regularly scheduled U.S. government biannual exercises. So yes, it's all just routine. It's all just normal. Similar training exercises have been conducted in various regions across the United States since 2012. While the exercise began today, the visible activity throughout the area will begin tomorrow. So, very interesting, huh? The training exercise will not pose any risk to area residents. The public does not need to be alarmed by training-related activity, including the presence of military personnel and aircraft and people in protective equipment, which participants will wear in order to simulate realistic conditions, will also include aircraft from federal, state, and local law enforcement. So there you go. So if you're in the New York area, the New York State area, maybe keep an eye out for that. Nuclear training exercise starting tomorrow. Well, really today, but visibly tomorrow at least. Interesting. USAID diplomats in Kiev refuse to comply with Trump's stop work order. So the USAID, from the American people, acting on behalf of the U.S. President, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, brand new to the gig, he was just sworn in the other day, issued instructions on Friday to suspend any new foreign aid expenditure for 90 days. Contracting and grant officers from the State Department and USAID were directed to immediately issue stop work orders until such time as the Secretary shall determine, following a review, according to a leaked cable cited by the Financial Times of London. The newspaper claimed that by Saturday evening, yesterday, several organizations in Ukraine had received orders to stop their operations until further notice. However, USAID in Ukraine has generally chosen to defy Rubio's decree to issue stop work orders until it receives more clarification from Washington. So a little bit of mutiny, I guess you could call it that anyway, at least at the moment. We'll see if they continue to hold out. But he's already supposedly cut the funding to many of the foreign people that are standing there with their hands out, other than obviously not to Israel. I heard also Egypt. Those two will continue to get their funding from the U.S. As far as Ukraine goes, I've heard that he stopped it, although we'll see. I don't know exactly on that. So anyways, let's keep going here. We've got quite a bit to look at tonight. All right, let's see here. Well, this first one is one that was all the controversy earlier in the week. On day 2, Trump introduces Stargate AI, the foundation for mass surveillance, in digital currency. Yeah, well, this article is saying that he didn't actually talk about digital currency that particular day, but here's what this blurb on this page says. OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle will be part of the joint venture called Stargate. Tech firms plan to invest $500 billion over 4 years to build artificial intelligence infrastructure across the U.S., beginning with massive data center in Texas. So that is not good. Critic named Seymour Rocks, who I've mentioned before on this show, wrote that Stargate will become digital slavery, which I agree. I think it will if it's allowed to happen. The tech partners are ARM, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Oracle, and OpenAI. So a lot of the usual suspects. I'm just adding that. Stargate isn't just a tech investment, it's the foundation of the beast system. AI surveillance, digital currency, centralized control, wrapped up in a shiny packaging and sold as, quote, progress. Donald Trump, the man who ushered in Operation Warp Speed and pushed the harmful now paves the way for this new tyranny. Note that AI is not 100% accurate. In addition, it relies on programming, and programmers are biased. All right, well, I think I can speak for all of us when I say, hell no. No way. None of that is going to happen on our watch, is it? Well, where to start there? First of all, the digital tracking system that's mentioned near the end, note that was from the first term and maybe even the first, 2016 campaign. It goes way back. And I have not heard him say anything about that since then. Doesn't mean he hasn't. I'm just saying I haven't personally heard him talk about the digital tracking system anymore. He, to some degree, he's completely ignorant when it comes to technology. And he's relying on these complete idiots for all this information, going back to the art of the deal. He wants to get the deal done. And just like Operation Warp Speed, this is Warp Speed 2.0. We're going to take a look at another short video here in a little bit with some more information about it. And I think it's fairly easy to see, though, that Trump even didn't really understand what was being said in that press conference the other day. It didn't look like he was just talking about how great they were, and they don't even normally do this. No, it's because they're computer programmers. They have no business being involved in health at all. Why is it that people who know how to write code, know how to program things, now all of a sudden think they need to be rewriting the human genome? Why do they need to be involved in health? So they don't. That's the answer. And, unfortunately, Trump really trusts all these people like Larry Ellison and the other guys that were there. Sam Altman is a younger version of Billy Gates. You could call him Bill Gates 2.0 because he really is. He's that sort of underhanded and sneaky about stuff. So I think it's super bad news, but note that it hasn't been implemented yet either. He's going to get a lot of pushback from this. He will, and he'll get a lot of pushback from RFK Jr. is my guess, if he's not already. And probably from Musk too, because Musk does not like Sam Altman. He's had his round and round about OpenAI, which isn't really open. OpenAI is Sam Altman's company, and OpenAI owns and runs ChatGPT. So if you've ever seen that before or used that before, that's Sam Altman's company. It's not open. It's not open source. It's completely closed. And that's one of the things that Musk does not like, because he doesn't want there to be one global AI system, because he knows it's going to be controlled, centralized, and completely take over whatever it was designed to do. So he does not want a centralized, closed system. So that's why he's been super critical of Sam Altman over the last year or so. So anyway, all that to say, it goes back to the art of the deal. I'm not making excuses for Trump, but I think he literally has no idea about any of the technology stuff and thinks he can take the knees to the next stage, and that people will want that, and people will completely reject it out of whole cloth, in my opinion. So I think he's probably going to backtrack on this. We'll have to keep an eye on it, obviously. So anyway, I just thought that was really important, and the Greg Reese video, I thought, summed it up pretty well. I don't know anything about this Japanese guy here, but Masayoshi-san, right here, Masayoshi-san of SoftBank is who this is. Okay, and then Larry Ellison, who we saw talking quite a bit, and Sam Altman was the short guy. Right there. So anyway, I think it's bad news. I don't particularly think that it will move very much further than this, but we definitely have to keep our eye on this, because this is super bad news, and the surveillance state that Larry's talking about is really scary. So anyway, we'll look at that a little bit more as we move forward tonight. I've got one other video here. It's about halfway through. We'll just play it when we get there soon, but it's Catherine Austin Fitts talking about the Stargate project. So we will get to that in a little bit. I'll play it in just a bit. So we'll definitely come back and readdress it again later in the broadcast. But yeah, it's a big club and we aren't in it. Exactly. Susan's right. Anyway, I just wanted to bring your attention to all of that stuff, and I think Trump's way in over his head on this one. And note that he did that on day 2 of his administration. I wonder why. He's trying to come clean, if you ask me, trying to undo some of the mess that this guy caused. And note, talking about how everybody's going to have cancer now. Well, yeah, if you took the guy, because you are going to have cancer. That's pretty much a done deal. All right, let's move on here. We got another need-to-know.news article, several of those tonight. LA County, new wildfire in Castaic scorches 10,000 acres and 30,000 people were evacuated. So it says a new fire exploded Wednesday north of Castaic near Six Flags, Magic Mountain theme park, charring more than 10,000 acres and forcing thousands to flee their homes amid a month of extreme fire conditions fanned by the Santa Ana winds. 30,000 people were given evacuation orders, while 20,000 were given an evacuation notice. So we have orders versus notice. The Hughes fire is now 36% contained. Some critics blame lack of fire prevention and brush clearance due to misguided environmentalism. Well, that's a little part of it, yeah. It goes beyond that, though, doesn't it? Fires across LA have killed at least 28 people, destroyed more than 16,000 structures, and charred some 76 square miles. The Palisades and Eaton wildfires continue to burn today. That's as of the 24th, so a couple days ago. Anyway, there's an embedded video here. This is Magic Mountain, I think, right there. And I've been by there before, although it's been years, so I don't really remember the area all that much. But yeah, it's another area under fire, quite literally. Trump pauses foreign assistance aid for 90 days pending review. There's good old Rubio again. So we'll see how that works out with Marco Rubio in there. He's not one of my favorite people, that's for sure. President Trump signed an executive order to implement a 90-day pause in foreign development assistance pending whether the aid is aligned with American interests and his foreign policy. The order signed by Trump leaves it up to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, or his designee to make such determinations. It is not clear what programs, countries, NGOs, and international organizations will be affected by the move. It's also unclear what funding could be cut given the U.S. Congress sets a U.S. federal government budget. Both Trump and Rubio appear to want to cut funds to Ukraine. Both Trump and Rubio have been supported by the Israeli lobby, but Israel's war in Gaza is unpopular with voters, says this article. So we'll see what happens there. So far, I think the funding to Israel has not stopped. And I wouldn't really look for it to, honestly. Anyway, so that's one of the articles here on needtoknow.news. Another LA fire one. Los Angeles, no money to repair 75 fire engines while the city spends $1.3 billion on the homeless. Yes, but there are still homeless people. How can you spend all that money and still have homeless people? Oh, I know. It's because it doesn't actually go to the homeless people. It goes to the corporate bureaucrats at the top who keep all the money, and the homeless people get squat, right? That's how it works. At least 75 fire trucks were stored in a city repair facility in downtown LA, broken down and useless while wildfires destroyed Altadena, Pacific Palisades, and Malibu. Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley admitted that over 100 fire apparatus, meaning fire engines, were out of service due to lack of funding for mechanical repairs. Mayor Karen Bass recently cut $17.6 million from the city's fire budget. Back in May, LA Fire Department Captain Freddie Escobar, president of the United Firefighters of Los Angeles Union, warned the department was seriously underfunded during the budget meeting. He said that there was a shortage of fire engines, trucks, ambulances, firemen, and medics that respond to 500,000 emergency calls for service every year. He warned that people would die. He pointed out that the fire budget was cut while the city spent $1.3 billion on homeless people who caused 50% of the fires. How about that? In addition, fire stations are in dire condition, according to an investigation by the Free Press. So, got videos embedded here as well. So, more info on this site, on this page. And then following up with even more about the LA fires. Fire officials could have deployed dozens of fire engines before the emergency. Yes, of course. LA Fire Department records show that despite warnings of life-threatening winds, top commanders decided against pre-positioning dozens of water-carrying engines and about 1,000 available firefighters, a standard procedure to prepare for emergencies. 40 fire engines were available to aid in battling wildfires, but only 5 were used until the fire burned out of control. The reserve engines and staff were finally deployed when the fire was an inferno. The fire destroyed much of the Pacific Palisades, and at least 25 people have died. 28 people is what I heard more recently. So this is from a couple days ago, this article. So on needtoknow.news, they have quite a bit of info on the fires. Trump announces a pardon for Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht, vacating his life sentence. Yeah, I saw an interview with him a few days ago. It's pretty amazing. President Trump announced Tuesday that he had granted a full and unconditional pardon for Ross Ulbricht, founder of the notorious dark web site Silk Road, that sold drugs and other illegal products while accepting Bitcoin as payment. Rand Paul reminded Trump of his campaign promise to pardon Ulbricht. Trump wrote on social media, "I just called the mother of Ross Ulbricht to let her know that in honor of her and the libertarian movement, which supported me so strongly, it was my pleasure to have just signed a full and unconditional pardon of her son Ross. The scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics who were involved in the modern-day weaponization of government against me. He was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Ridiculous. The Silk Road was a threat to the federal government's war on drugs. So there you go. And you can't do that. So that is a little bit about who Ross Ulbricht is, who is now pardoned and has his freedom back. So anyway, that is one of the other stories on needtoknow.news. One more from there. Must read. Overview of Trump's day one executive actions reversing numerous bad policies. After his inauguration, Trump signed executive actions that include the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord again, which it did the first time around too in the first term, although I don't think it was ever actually implemented. This time, maybe it will be. We'll see. That will reportedly save taxpayers $1 trillion being out of the Paris Climate Accord. Wow. $1 trillion. Trump also signed all of government directives to address inflation, prohibiting government from restricting speech, and prohibiting the weaponization of federal agencies against political opponents. Trump issued 10 executive actions on border security, including a national emergency declaration to pave the way for military deployment to the border and the completion of a border wall. Trump's orders to reinstate remain in Mexico, end the catch and release of illegals, and designate cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, pause refugee resettlement, and end birthright citizenship, which is likely to be challenged based on the 14th Amendment. The Biden policies were a significant factor in attracting at least 11 million illegal immigrants into the country in 4 years. That's the official government numbers, 9 to 10 to, this says 11 million. The real numbers, 40. It's more like 40 million. Trump signed an executive order to withdraw the U.S. from the United Nations World Homicide Organization, ending any negotiations on the organization's global pandemic treaty. Let's hope that actually works and happens. Trump granted full and unconditional pardons to all January 6 prisoners with the exception of 14 people who received commutations. And they were going to go back and look at them a little closer. But hopefully they will get pardons as well. This article is important to read in its entirety and includes a long list of executive actions against inflation that has surged by 21%, bad climate policies, censorship, energy and drilling restrictions, electric vehicles, DEI, race and gender policies, and much more. Many of the actions undo leftist initiatives and affect all Americans. So you can see here, there's a lot on this article, and it's linking over to the original article, which is a Zero Hedge article. So anyway, have a look at that if you guys are so interested. And then top headlines on technocracy. Technocracy.news, this is Patrick Wood's site. Back to the Stargate again. The Stargate is open. Enter the Sand Gods. The Sand Gods. Forget the Who. That's so old school. Enter Stargate in the Made in the USA version of science-based medical dictatorship. Yeah, that's what would happen, actually. If Larry Ellison's AI gives you an ironclad diagnosis of, say, cancer, and makes a special for you, the machine will roll up your sleeve and ram the needle into your arm. There will be no second opinion. There will be no appeal. There will be no exemption. And don't even think about what will happen to you if you refuse. Yes, that's right. But like myself and all of you out there probably, we will be refusing, won't we? Anyway, that's one of the top articles on technocracy. And then this one, Joe Allen, after the great remix, technocracy is still here. Technocracy, with its priesthood of scientists, engineers, and tech bros, is a scourge to humanity. It is the Borg, assimilating everything in its path. Resistance is futile. It crushes everything that it cannot control. It is devoid of humanness and human emotion. Technocrats dream of sand gods and algorithmic mammon. They dream about going to Mars and then to the stars. And it says reject, reject, reject. Yeah. Yeah, the whole Mars thing is a bit silly to me. I definitely am in the camp of we can't get there from here. Many of you guys might be as well. At least not by jumping in a rocket ship and flying there. Now, can you get there from a jump room? I think you can already. I doubt that Elon has ever heard of jump rooms. So anyway, we've talked about that on this show before. ReclaimTheNet.org. All right, a couple of the top headlines here. Europol chief Catherine DeBalt pushes for encryption backdoors at Davos. Yeah, so if you guys didn't know, Davos is going on right now too. Just as Trump was being sworn in, basically, is about when Davos started. So yet again. And then the next article here, cyber attack on Ukraine exposes the dangers of digital ID systems. And then President Trump signs executive orders banning CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. And there's a question as to whether or not that would have any teeth in it, but at least it's a start. And then this one, PayPal admits freezing account over named criticism. All right, so President Trump signs executive order banning CBDCs. We mentioned that earlier. The executive order marks a decisive pivot in the U.S. digital asset policy. I think it's good news. Whether or not it actually has any teeth in it is a whole other question, because obviously CBDCs would be connected to something called the Fed, and the Fed isn't actually run by our government, is it? It's a private bank. So that would definitely be a question I would have anyway. It says Trump took a bold step on Thursday by signing an executive order that establishes a cryptocurrency working group, fulfilling a key campaign pledge made during his appeal to digital asset advocates, and also banning controversial CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. This newly established advisory body is set to take on a pivotal role in shaping U.S. policy on digital assets. Its responsibilities include collaborating with Congress to draft cryptocurrency legislation and advising on the development of a proposed Bitcoin reserve. Additionally, the council will work to align efforts across federal regulatory agencies such as the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and the Treasury Department. One of its more unique tasks will involve assessing the feasibility of creating and managing a national repository of digital assets. How about that? According to the executive order, these assets could potentially include cryptocurrencies confiscated during federal law enforcement operations. Well, that doesn't sound good, does it? Anyway, it says on the same day, Trump issued another executive order banning the development and use of CBDCs within the U.S. All right, let's see. I've got several articles here on the Liberty Beacon and several things I wanted to mention. As you guys may or may not have known, Trump went out west after he first went to see the people in North Carolina who were affected by all the floods post-hurricane, and then he went to visit the wildfire-ravaged Los Angeles area. I guess on his way back, he stopped in Vegas. Says in Las Vegas, Trump floats eliminating the federal income tax if the tariffs work out. So he was talking about no tax on tips as well. It says years ago, 1870 to 1913, we didn't have an income tax. What we had is tariffs. Yeah. Trump said that the U.S. could possibly eliminate the federal income tax if his tariff plan works out as intended. If the tariffs work out like I think, a thing like that could happen. If you want to know the truth, he said, years ago, 1870 to 1913, we didn't have an income tax. All we had is tariffs. So, yeah. Trump said the additional IRS agents that the Biden administration hired could potentially move to the border. So they're going to get a new gig. They're going to send them to the border. I think that's hilarious. I don't know that that's actually going to happen, but that's pretty funny. You have to imagine that they are these IRS agents who've been trained to use their guns. You guys probably remember the footage a couple years ago about that. They're going to put them to use on the border and send them down to the border. Well, at least they'll still have a job, right? I think we're going to move them to the border. You know, they're allowed to carry guns, he said. Trump touted his decision to designate drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Biden didn't want to do that, he said. Biden didn't know he was alive. He didn't want to do that. So again, trolling fake President Biden. Pretty funny. Liberty Beacon article, and then this one too. More on the Stargate AI. This guy Van Arrowman. Trump declares he will use emergency declarations to speed up the Stargate project. So that's not good, but we talked about this a little while ago. Your guy is ready for you, Dave. Yeah, I could see that happening. But yeah, I don't think so. Trump has not learned from or admitted to his first genocide, Van Arrowman program, and now on day 2 of his second term, he's starting another one. AI, Van Arrowman. I like how they always have the hooded guy in the background there doing all these shady things in the pictures. Project Stargate is upon us. Trump to invest $500 billion in new U.S. data centers to boost the power of artificial intelligence. Again, Trump has no idea about any of this stuff. He has no clue how any of it works, and he has no idea how detrimental it would be to the human body if injected. So, but again, the art of the deal. The guy wants to cut the deal. He wants to be the hero, doesn't he? So anyway, this is actually from Leo Hohmann's Substack, this article. So we'll take a look at that a little bit closer as well. But that's on the Liberty Beacon. And this one too. Federal DEI officials try to disguise to keep their jobs, but there's nowhere to hide. The woke tards. The hunt begins. On day 1 of his second term, Trump put the federal government's weight behind the national push to end DEI programs by signing an executive order that would effectively dismantle them from all aspects of the federal government. The executive action calls for the termination of DEI programs and mandates, policies and preferences and activities in the federal government, along with the review and revision of existing federal employment practices, union contracts, and training policies or programs. Agency, department, and commission heads have 60 days to terminate, to the maximum extent allowed by law, all DEI and DEIA and what they're calling environmental justice offices and positions and action plans and equity-related grants or contracts, as well as end all DEI or DEIA performance requirements. So again, that's good news. That's good news. Hopefully that will stick. Perhaps not believing that this action would come so quickly or so aggressively, diversity offices seem to have been caught completely off guard. Yeah, they couldn't imagine why anyone would ever stop them from doing what they're doing. Completely off guard, and employees are now scrambling to figure out how they can still keep their government paycheck. Federal DEI employees are reportedly unclear as to their status and do not know if they're being fired or if they're being moved to a new position. But in all likelihood, they'll be fired. So, there you go. So this is interesting. Look at this. This is an example of what this article is talking about here. Lisa T. Boykin. Her original title was the Chief Diversity Officer and the Office of the Director on January 21st, 2025. That was her title, Chief Diversity Officer. But now her title is simply Senior Executive. All else is the same. The next day, she just became a Senior Executive, quote unquote, on January 22nd. Too funny. Anyway, they're trying to hide what it is they're doing so they can keep their big fat paychecks and their 1 day a month work week. Yeah. Well, they won't be able to keep that because there's already been an executive order about returning to work. But anyway, thought that was kind of interesting. And then this one, Putin says that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. Putin drops a big one. Trump had the 2020 election stolen. And Ukraine could have been avoided, question mark. Yeah. This is a post from something called the Clandestine Substack. Has a full-size video reproduced here in a tweet. Putin says that the war in Ukraine never would have started if the election had not been stolen from Trump in 2020. So just think about that for a second. The Democrats literally stole the election in 2020. And because of that theft, how many hundreds of thousands of young men have died in Ukraine as a result of Trump not being elected at that time, Putin marching in to Ukraine because he had to. Not because he was evil, but he had to. Putin/Russia have said many times that the U.S. manufactured a biological crisis, COVID-19, in order to carry out the mail-in ballot fraud. So Putin gets it, doesn't he? There would not have been a Ukraine war if Trump would have been reelected. Yeah, and note, too, that if Trump would have been elected, he would now be on his way out instead of on his way back in. So all of the people who have been beside themselves for the last 4 years, contracting Trump derangement syndrome and only getting worse, now have to go through a whole nother 4 years, whereas before, if they would have just allowed it to happen, it would all be over for them. And now they can move forward. Something to think about. Anyway, that is a Liberty Beacon article. A couple more from there, and quite a few from there tonight. Pete Hegseth confirmed as defense secretary, and Vice President Vance cast the tie-breaking vote. Hegseth confirmed as the Secretary of Defense. I thought I was done voting in the Senate, Vance said. Pretty funny. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate on Friday night to confirm Pete Hegseth as Trump's Secretary of Defense. This marks only the second time in U.S. history that the vice president's vote was required to confirm a cabinet official. VP Vance cast the 51-50 tie-breaking vote to confirm Hegseth Friday night after the three Republicans, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Mitch McConnell, joined the Democrats and independents in opposing the Princeton and Harvard-educated former combat veteran and former Fox News host, Pete Hegseth. So there he is with his family. He says, "We did it, America. It was an honor to be in the fight with my friend and your Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth." So that's from one of the senators. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, there's people arguing about what that could mean, but obviously he's a huge Israel supporter, which in my opinion, that's not good. But I think most of the other information that I've heard and seen about him seems to be pretty good. So we'll see how it goes. But he's in. So now, let's see a couple of X articles I just thought I would mention. Came across this one. Let me help with the math here. Says there are only 8,500 actual women in federal prison. They are housed alongside 1,500 men pretending to be women. Good times, it says. Well, this is based on this original tweet that says 15% of all women in federal prison, which is 1,500 inmates, are transgender? ? That jaw-dropping stat was buried in a New York Times story yesterday, meaning on January 23rd. So, that's crazy. The number of people affected is relatively small. There are about 1,500 federal prisoners who are transgender women, according to the Bureau of Prisons, but they represent an outsized portion of federal inmates, especially among female prisoners. 15% of women in prison are transgender. There are 750 transgender men out of about 144,000 male prisoners. So yeah, 8,500 actual women and 1,500 men pretending to be women. So I thought that was really interesting, and not all that surprising actually, but it's kind of cool to see the numbers there. Yeah, and then I found this one on Breitbart. Corey Compertori's widow, you remember him, right? Was shot on the first assassination attempt in Butler, PA. Corey Compertori's widow says Trump called her every day for almost 2 weeks after the shooting. The widow of Corey Compertori, the Pennsylvania man who was tragically murdered with a bullet meant for Trump at a July rally, said that Trump called her every day for almost 2 weeks after the shooting. Oh, that was pretty interesting. That's the type of stuff that you don't really hear too much of, but there's more detail here on this article if you guys want to follow up. There she is with, I guess, the daughters and Trump. So, not something you'd do if you were the Antichrist, is it? Just saying. All right. And then this one, Matt Von Swall, I've mentioned him on the show before. We've shown some of his tweets. He is in the western North Carolina area that was hammered by the floods after the hurricane. This is one of his tweets. I've got several of them pulled up here. Fox and Friends, how do you feel about President Trump coming to western North Carolina? Matt Von Swall says, like we've been screaming into the void at the Biden administration for 4 months, then Trump gets elected and we're finally being heard for the first time. Trump effect, it says. So there is a video here embedded, 4-minute video. I won't bother playing it, but you can, this is him here. You can check that out if you want to. Again, we'll link to all these videos and posts and stuff like that in the Substack that I send out on Tuesday. President Trump has handed his press conference over to the victims of Hurricane Helene and is asking them on national television to name the insurance companies that have stiffed them. Absolutely epic stuff. So, in one visit, Trump has helped the people of Western North Carolina in so many ways more than the Biden administration has done in 4 months. And then here he's saying, that's my president. So I don't think he's actually in this picture, but you can see that people are being allowed to speak and they're given a platform, which is pretty amazing. All right. And then RT.com. Thought this was pretty interesting. You'll see part 1, part 2 of the story here. Trump to sanction Colombia for refusing to take back illegal aliens. Bogota must accept the criminals they forced into the United States, Trump said. I was just informed that 2 repatriation flights from the U.S. with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia, Trump wrote on Truth Social. And he added that he's directing his administration to take urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. What do you suppose that is? Trump went on to explain that he will place a 25% emergency tariff on all Colombian goods entering the U.S. Now, what is it Colombia is known for other than cocaine? What legal products? Coffee? The U.S. is Colombia's largest trading partner with around $12 billion worth of Colombian goods entering the U.S. every year. $12 billion. Kind of important to them. Well, part 2 of the story is Colombia surrenders to Trump. Bogota will dispatch a presidential plane to pick up the migrants slated for deportation from the U.S. So not only has he got them to change their mind, they're going to come pick up the illegals. How about that? Now that is a guy with some power, with some swagger. Pretty wild. I just thought that was funny. So they did the about face, and it was all in the course of 1 day. Actually, it was just a few hours. So Colombia has already given in. The power of the dollar, right? I thought this one was weird. Look at this story. Joe Biden joins the Black Freemasons. The former U.S. president could technically be excommunicated from the Catholic Church for becoming a master Mason. Former fake president Joe Biden, I'm adding the fake part, a self-professed Catholic, has joined an African American Masonic lodge as a, quote, master Mason. The Vatican takes a dim view of Freemasonry, and Catholics who join the fraternal order face excommunication. Weird. Biden was inducted into the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge in South Carolina on Sunday, one day before he left office. In a private ceremony, the lodge's Grand Master granted Biden the Master Mason membership with full honors, according to a statement published by the organization last weekend and circulated online on Friday. Wow. To be a Freemason is to be part of a brotherhood dedicated to personal growth, service to others, and pursuit of knowledge and truth, the lodge wrote. Biden's service, the statement added, reflects the core values of this brotherhood. I bet it does. Wonder if he'll start out as a 33rd degree, you suppose? Probably not. I think old Joe probably would be doing good to be a, negative 33rd degree Mason. I just thought that was weird, though, that he would even be invited to join the Black Freemasons and that he not only accepted, but might be excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Weird. It's a strange world, isn't it? Okay, People's Voice TV. So top headlines on there. Trump begins disbanding the IRS. They're un-American and they must go. So we'll see. I'm not real sure. I don't think he's actually disbanding it yet. He's just talking about taking the 88,000 new employees that have gun training and shipping them to the border. It's pretty funny. Beyond that, I don't think it's actually moved forward yet. But we can keep our fingers crossed, can't we? CNN host drops bombshell. Biden may have pardoned himself for various crimes, which we talked about. I showed a video about the pardons earlier today. I've got one more article about that here in just a bit we'll look at. Video. World Economic Forum globalists admit the New World Order has lost to Trump. I would say it's bigger than Trump. If they've lost to a new idea that people are figuring out what's going on post-COVID, and they are interested in freedom. They're interested in the ability to say and do and think what they want, and they don't want some unelected bureaucrats like the WEF ruling over them. This is not an oligarchy, although they would like to have it that way. They would not like to give up to tyranny, but unfortunately, I think they might have to. People are putting their foot down. I think that's good. U.S. company building luxury members only doomsday bunkers. Luxury members only doomsday residence with AI-powered medical suites and indoor swimming pools is being developed in the U.S. Interesting. Sure, many of you guys could probably afford that. Multi-million-dollar complex. Maybe not. The thing about those kind of things is they always have some person that's probably making minimum wage or a little over sitting at the security gate who doesn't have access to anything other than the switch to either lock you in or lock you out. So to me, if that guy or people that run the gate if they're not on your side and they're just getting paid minimum wage and something huge happens like some nuclear event and those people are all in their doomsday bunkers underground with one way in, one way out, there's a good chance they're never coming out. If the guy at the top decides it's time to just lock the door and walk off. I don't know. Just a thought there. Trump restarts border wall construction. So that's the next article. And then report reveals 1 in 12 people living in London are illegal migrants. 1 in 12. Another article. Mike Obama, Big Mike, divorcing Barack because history of pedophilia is about to be exposed. So we'll see. I'm not exactly sure that's what's going on. There's been a lot of stories about Obama and other actresses, what's her name, Jennifer Aniston, and all this stuff, but I don't know. The pedophilia thing does kind of make sense to me, so we'll see. I'm not so sure they're actually getting divorced, but if they do, maybe that's the reason why. Maybe the old Epstein client list will be coming out soon. Who knows? All right, and then the next one, anti-Trump Democrat official arrested on child rape charges. top Democrat Party official from Orange County, Florida, has been arrested on federal child sex crime charges. Wow, that's crazy. But not all that surprising because he is a top Democrat Party official, after all, and most of them are probably engaged in that very thing. WEF announced pseudonymous digital ID system with plans for social credit score and carbon allowance. So getting back into the digital ID, world ID situation here. They're talking about that apparently now. World Economic Forum in Davos is spearheading a dystopian push for digital ID-linked pseudonymity, a move that would strip citizens of their online anonymity and hand governments unprecedented access to their personal data. Yep, that is not good, but obviously that's where they want to go with it. Question is, will Trump and others go along with it? Let's hope not. That would not be good. All right, information liberation. Alja Minor, I don't know who that is. Trump forced Israel to surrender. Why isn't he receiving the blame? The Alja Minor ran a column from former AIPAC employee on Friday lamenting that President Trump forced Israel to surrender their war on Gaza because he shamefully dreams about being a peacemaker. And doesn't care about Netanyahu and Israel's political future. I think he does. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Trump issues executive order to create plan for declassifying JFK, RFK, and MLK assassination files. I think I've got that article pulled up separately here. Netanyahu defends Musk salute. Elon is a great friend of Israel, he says. Yeah, you guys probably heard about the salute. I think Elon was trolling people, but he certainly was not doing the Nazi salute. It's so funny. Trump revokes decades-old executive order said to be the origin of woke. Trump targeted America's DEI bureaucracy on Wednesday with a far-reaching executive order that appears to draw off of Richard Hanina's The Origins of Woke, quote-unquote. And Jeremy Carl's The Unprotected Class. So how about that? So he's going back in history a little bit and revoking some things that may have to do with it. Trump mass pardons approximately 1,500 January 6th protesters. I think that's a very good move. All right. Anyway, there's more here on information liberation. And then the one that I pulled up here. Declassifying RFK, JFK, MLK assassination files. This is him signing those documents and handing the pen over to be given to RFK Jr. Thought that was kind of interesting. Trump on Thursday issued an executive order directing the Director of National Intelligence, Attorney General, and other officials to create a plan to declassify all remaining files on the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK. Yeah. So we'll see. I think it gives them. Probably says in here. I think it's outlining 15 days here. Declassification and disclosure within 15 days of the date of this order. So that was just the other day. The Director of National Intelligence and the Attorney General shall, in coordination with the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs and the Counsel to the President, present a plan to the President for the full and complete release of records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. So that's good. That's good. We'll see what happens. You might just get a white page with everything blacked out, totally redacted. And that might be their release. I sort of expect it to be highly redacted, and there'll be one interesting new piece of information that people may not know about, maybe some admissions of some things, and that'll be about it. Personally, I think that's what will happen, but we'll see. I would love to be wrong. I would hope that they would give us all of the information, but I don't look for them to. Says hopefully this is not going to be weaseled out of or filled with redactions, as President Trump has the authority to ignore this plan and disclose whatever he pleases But the question remains if he will go through with it. Don't forget, he caved on this issue during his first term. Yeah, but he is re-energized, you can tell, after all of the lawfare and everything he's been through. The lawfare plus the murder attempts and other things that he's been through. So I don't know. I tend to think he really does want to see this stuff released, especially with RFK Jr. Becoming a confidant on some of this stuff as well. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. All right, from the SIFT on WNG, a couple articles I pulled up. 5 new fires spark in California, others still ablazing. First responders battled 9 separate wildfires Friday across 4 Southern California counties. So, again, it just seems to be never ending here. After 5 new fires sparked the previous day, according to CAL FIRE, over 2 weeks of active wildfires destroyed more than 50,000 acres of land, mostly in LA County. However, meteorologists expect a wave of rain and snow to move through the region toward the end of the weekend. Yeah, we'll see. Usually when they say that kind of stuff, they just get a drizzle, but maybe something better will happen. The first thing they need to do, and you won't hear this anywhere else, but the first thing they need to do is do away with the high-pressure heat dome that's been stationary over Northern California for many years at this point. I don't know if it's been a decade. It's been a long time. It's what's caused the drought in California. High-pressure heat dome forces the moisture up and around the high-pressure area, and it goes up into Oregon, Washington, and on down into the U.S. So that's why California is so dry. There's a high-pressure heat dome pushing the moisture north. So if they really wanted to bring moisture to California and do away with the drought, they would first have to get rid of the high-pressure heat dome in the northern Pacific area of California. So if you're at the top of California and you're just looking out west over the ocean, that's where the high-pressure heat dome is sitting. I don't have a map pulled up. But think of the top of California. To the left there, at where the Pacific is, over the water is where the high-pressure heat dome is sitting. It's been sitting there for literally years, if not a decade or more. And that's the reason that there is a drought in Southern California, because they're literally steering the moisture away from California. They have been for a long, long time. Anyway, this has some more information here on the active fires in SoCal. Republicans visit North Carolina alongside Trump and vow FEMA reforms. So yeah, we'll see. This is Bill Lee here. He is the governor of Tennessee. Let's see who else is mentioned. It says House Republicans joined Trump in a visit to North Carolina communities recovering from Hurricane Helene on Friday. During the trip, they promised to redouble efforts to keep the Federal Emergency Management Agency accountable in its distribution of aid and use of funding. Representative Mark Harris, Republican from North Carolina, said it was undeniable that FEMA dropped the ball in Northern California. He said his visit to Asheville with the president only confirmed that FEMA had gotten in the way of the state's ability to rebuild and provide real assistance to the victims of Helene. He went on to call for FEMA to be reformed and promised to work with Trump and Congress to ensure Americans affected by natural disasters received the help that they needed. Have a look at that if you guys want. WNG.org is a pretty good site. And then I found this one as well on Daily Mail. Trump sends ominous threat to Putin unless he ends this ridiculous war with Ukraine now. So this is another one of those Trump things that he's done since he's been in there now that I think is really very reckless of him to do. Obviously, we'll see the way things work out. The Russians are incredibly patient. Putin has been incredibly patient and doesn't want to start a nuclear war, obviously. Otherwise, we'd have had one by now, given everything the Biden administration did. But I do think this was really reckless of Trump to do. Just the bravado, that he knows best in this situation, and clearly he doesn't. He doesn't have all of his facts straight even. So Trump promised to end the war in Ukraine during his first 24 hours, which not quite lived up to that one. Might be a little more complicated than he thought. On Wednesday, he offered insight into how he plans to force a deal. Trump on Wednesday warned Putin that he faces taxes, tariffs, and sanctions if Russia didn't sign up to a deal to end the war in Ukraine. Well, tariffs and sanctions aren't really going to matter a whole lot to him. He also said that their economy is tanking, which it's not. It's very strong. The Russian economy is very strong because they have so much oil and gas and stuff that they're able to provide. So, says he delivered the threat on Truth Social. Here's what he said: if we don't make a deal, and soon, I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the U.S. and various other participating countries. Trump posted with his usual mix of idiosyncratic capitalization. Let's get this war, which never would have started if I were president, over with. So that actually is true, and Putin has even said that. Trump frequently claimed that he would end the war in Ukraine in his first 24 hours in the White House. He may have missed the deadline, but he has made clear that the conflict must come to a halt with a mix of incentives and threats aimed at both sides. So Trump has hinted that he could intensify the supply of arms to Ukraine if Moscow does not come to the negotiating table. You know, Zelensky's rubbing his hands together on that one. Yet, at the same time, he has signaled the supply could be shut off if Kiev refuses a countenance deal. On Tuesday, he was asked by reporters about the possibility of choking off arms to Ukrainian President Zelensky. So yeah, hopefully that's what will happen. He says, we'll look into that. We're talking to Zelensky, he said. We're going to be talking with Putin very soon. We'll see what and how it all happens. We are going to look at it. Now, here's the other crazy thing about this, and I've only heard this one place, so I don't know if it's true or not, but Hal Turner on his radio show just a day or two ago stated that the number one reason that this deal hasn't happened yet, you won't believe it, the number one reason that Putin and Trump haven't talked to each other is that neither one of them wants to be the first to call the other guy. That's literally what's being said now. Neither one of them, Trump or Putin, want to be the first one to call the other guy. What is this, like 7th grade? We have the entire human race at stake here with 2 nuclear superpowers, and no one wants to call the other guy. Personally, I think Trump should pick up the phone and call because Biden was so terrible. There was never any communication between Biden and Putin. When there should have been daily communication, there was none. And Putin said on the record that he had never talked to Biden in years about any of this stuff. So, to me, Trump should be the guy to pick up the phone, call Putin, and get it ironed out. But anyways, again, what are we, the little kids or something that we can't pick up the phone and call somebody when there's an issue? There's definitely an issue. I can say that. Trump will unveil Stargate AI initiative with OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle targeting $500 billion investment. Well, going back to the video that we showed earlier, the Greg Reese report, which I thought was really good. This has more information on that as well as another video clip embedded. And I wanted to show you guys this one. So let me do that. And this is only a 4-minute video, but it's Catherine Austin Fitts, and she definitely knows what she's talking about.
So many of them, not everyone, but so many of them and some of the interests we're dealing with believe that the way to re-engineer things is to bring total chaos. And I was talking with someone who is very influential and powerful the other day, and they were talking about what was happening in Syria would help the interests of freedom because chaos ultimately would serve the interests of freedom. Yeah. Which is, I've heard that theory a million times. It's, as far as I can tell, it's never worked once. So, what you do is you basically slaughter the productive and you encourage the unproductive. And that generally never gets you anywhere.
The other part of it is, we hate the state, we hate the state, we hate the state. But the quiet part of that conversation is, but boy, do we love those sovereign powers. And boy, would we like to use those for our own benefit, not for your benefit.
Well, here's the thing. They're all financed by the state. In other words, they're vacuum cleaning the state credit and the state treasury, and they're using the state to launder all the money out of the pension funds to give to them. But they don't want to pay taxes. They don't want to contribute to the state, and they don't want to respect the rule of law that is behind collecting all those taxes and credit for them.
Tell you what else they don't want. They don't want any transparency at all. They want to work in the dark and use your sovereign powers, because those powers belong to we the people under the Constitution, but they just want to use those powers for themselves and put a curtain over what they're doing, not let you, the serf, see anything.
Right. Now, it's marketing, though. It's very important that they always have a marketing pitch that describes why this is helping people.
Oh, yeah.
So example, we have Trump with Larry Ellison and Sam Altman at the White House announcing a $500 million Stargate program. And the whole idea is it's going to help end disease for the average American person. And when you listen to it, no, it's going to provide massive taxpayer money working through government contracts, making it look like a private investment, which it's not. It's coming from the taxpayer. And what it's going to do is it's going to fund and build data centers all over the country through the contractors who now have the big contracts at the intelligence agencies and DOD that will be the backbone of the control grid.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is spun according to what's good for people. And the lie in it is, if you look at what they're proposing to do with the internet technology, it's basically you're going to use poison to address, the poisoning that the last gave you. So it's literally it's a progressive poisoning model. It's basically Operation Warp Speed 2.0 is air cover for building the control grid.
Yeah, the poison spiral begins.
Right. So Kennedy has to go into his confirmation hearing probably before the end of the month, when Trump has just announced a $500 billion investment in aeromet technology.
Wow.
Okay?
Well, $500 billion.
$500 billion. How are you going to handle that one? The refiners fire people on all sides of that discussion are going to come out of the woodwork, and we're going to have a huge hole. This is going to be a hell of a discussion.
We'll see. My guess is that he pitches it as, well, we just need to perfect these guys. There's nothing inherently wrong with them. We just need to improve quality control.
Right. But if he does that, there's a whole world of people who truly want to stop the great poisoning, who will completely walk away from him.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right. I don't know what's going to happen. If you look at what he did on Bitcoin bailout, for all I know, he's going to embrace the aroma technology.
Yeah, interesting, huh? I thought that was a good clip, and always respect what Catherine Austin Fitts has to say. I think that they make some good points in this video for sure, and I think that there's a good chance that it is with the aroma thing. It is a version 2.0 of Operation Warp Speed. That does seem to be where it's headed. So I don't know. I don't know if that's what happens or not. Again, I think he's trying to make a deal. It's the art of the deal, and he has no clue on technology. So he's putting the people at the top of those systems in charge, and unfortunately, they're criminals. People like Larry Ellison and Sam Altman and others. So the Japanese guy, I don't know, but those two guys, super questionable. And again, Sam Altman is the Bill Gates 2.0. That is not somebody you want in charge of anything. So anyway, yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I thought that that clip from the Solari report was pretty good. So have a look at that. And then this one as well. I'm not going to play this, but I will link to it in the Substack post that I put out on Tuesday. And again, if you're not on that list, make sure you are. It's totally free, diamonddisc.substack.com. Link's in the upper right corner in the black box up there. So, dark journalist talking about the JFK records, and this has to do with the UFO file bombshell release executive order. Now, personally, I don't know how much the UFO files had to do with JFK's death. A lot of people swear by that. A lot of people really think that's what it was. I don't know. I don't really. It could have had a little bit of something in, as far as that goes, a little bit of a reason for that. But to me, it was the trying to do away with the, not the Federal Reserve, but the put the monetary system back on the actual, instead of using the note, the Federal Reserve note, he tried to put it back on a gold-based system, and I think that was a huge part of it. And obviously, he had really ticked off AIPAC, which it wasn't called AIPAC then, but let's just say the Israeli lobby, and that would have a lot to do with it as well. But what's come out recently about that, and I mentioned it last week, was that the 1972 recording that had come out that basically just said, essentially, Lyndon Baines Johnson and the Texas bigwigs, the Texas mafia, had him whacked. That's really what happened. And to me, that was probably 99% of what actually transpired and the reason JFK was killed. So you can attach the UFO thing if you want. Maybe that did have something to do with it. Personally, I don't really think it had much, if anything, to do with it. But the dark journalist, that's a guy that I respect him, and his research is really, really good. So, it's a video that you can definitely check out if you're interested. But I'll warn you, it's 3.5 hours long. So it's super long. But it is there if you guys want to find it. It's on his channel on YouTube, but I'll link to it in the post that I put out on Tuesday. And then this one I found on Arab News. It was linked to from the Daily Crow, which is a site that I look at to find things to talk about on these shows, and thought this was kind of interesting. Israeli forces kill 22 in southern Lebanon and ignore the withdrawal deadline. So back to Lebanon again. Beirut, Israeli army fire killed 22 people in South Lebanon on Sunday, including a soldier. Health officials said as residents tried to return home on the day Israel was supposed to withdraw under a truce deal. So there you go. Unarmed civilians were targeted by the soldiers' gunfire and drone bombs. So, wow. Unreal. The return of residents to the border area in southern Lebanon turned into scenes resembling a massacre. So, welcome to Israel, huh? So they're supposed to have a situation where they're withdrawing, and instead they're just murdering people. Sounds a lot like what's going on in Gaza as well. Anyway, that one's on ArabNews.com. That's where that is. Now, this one was linked to, I think, from that same site from Daily Crow, and this is a Karen Kingston Substack post. You guys know who she is. Talking about Trump's broligarchy. The tech bros, as they're being called. AI tech billionaires concerning left-wing media. Sounds a lot like the divine right of kings, but with a pseudo-scientific spin. That's just a 21st century way of saying God says I'm king and you all need to bow down. Wow. Not too far off. So you can see what the Facebook tech bro is checking out there in this picture. This is Bezos and his fiance, and old Zuckerberg sitting right next to him, and you could say his eyes are wandering a little bit, and interesting that he's been caught with that happening. Above is a screenshot of broligarch Zuckerberg checking out the cleavage of fellow broligarch Jeff Bezos' fiance while attending Trump's inauguration. So there you go. Nice. Anyways, so this is a Karen Kingston Substack. So she's talking about the tech billionaires buying our democracy. So yeah, that's not good, but that's what they're trying to do. So yeah, Karen Kingston Substack's always a really good one. She puts out some really good articles. And that one's probably a little bit lighter for her. She really gets into the nitty gritty on the Skywdevuk and stuff. So, but this one's more about the broligarchy. Pretty funny. All right, and then New York Post. Some friends mentioned this to me, and I didn't really see it because the camera angle. When I was watching the inauguration on Monday, I didn't really see it. I forget. I think I might have been watching CBS. I don't remember exactly, but I wasn't really seeing that angle where they were not really showing his left hand, and it was not on the Bible. And that's what this article is about. Trump did not place his hand on the Bible for the oath of office during his inauguration, but supporters defend the president over the rushed ceremony. And it was rushed. You could definitely tell that. I'm not saying he needs an excuse. He should have had his hand on the Bible for sure. And Melania was standing right there with him, and you could see in one spot when they first start doing the oath, she almost interrupts. You could see that she wants to say something, but she doesn't. So I think, personally, he just forgot, and then it was rushed. Not saying that that's the excuse. He should have done it anyway, but Trump did not place his hand on a stack of 2 Bibles held by Melania as he was sworn into office on Monday, but many on social media came to his defense, arguing that the oath was rushed. I did find that it was as well. Seemed like he went through it really fast. Chief Justice John Roberts. People were quick to question the move and considered that it might be a sign of Trump's departure from presidential norms, but others noted that the entire ceremony appeared to be rushed, blaming Chief Justice John Roberts. And there were some people saying that, and there's a clear shot right there. Some people were saying that when John Roberts does other oaths, that this is the kind of stuff that happens. I don't have any idea. That might not even be true, but I do think it's interesting. But to me, you can really see, if you go back and watch the video, she almost interrupts him, but you can tell she didn't want to be the one to stop the process, and I think that would have been far worse than just letting it be. And I think she made the right decision. So anyway. So yeah, it's true. It's true. He did not have his hand on the Bible. So whether or not it was planned that way, I don't know. He does credit God with his, and he did in his speech, that he believes that God has kept him alive for a reason. When the bullet ripped through his ear, he thinks he's being kept alive for a reason by God. So he did acknowledge God. It's not like he was trying to ignore God and not mention him. But I do think it's interesting that he did not place his hand on the Bible. And that is a fact. All right, and then Zero Hedge article here. Watch Trump signing J6 pardons for, quote, a lot of people. Tonight I'm going to be signing on the J6 hostage pardons. I like how he calls them the J6 hostages. That's exactly what they were. To get them out as soon as I leave, we're going to be signing pardons for a lot of people. Trump says at the Capital One Arena to more than 20,000 supporters. Yeah, he went to the Capital One Arena, which I think is there in D.C. where the Washington Capitals play. I think that's the hockey arena. But yeah, the executive orders, he had a huge pile of them that he was literally just sitting there at the desk and signing and taking the pins and throwing them out in the crowd. Thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, then he left there and went back to the Oval Office to sign the J6 pardons as well. So anyway, he did lots of EOs while he was in the arena. Pretty wild. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Now this is something that I leave this tab open so that I don't forget to come back and address this, and I still want to do that, but that's going to have to be a separate broadcast. This is the Serapium, and talking about the end times and this timeline. And I wanted to leave this open because I wanted to come back and address some of these things that's mentioned in this article. And I think it's interesting that, this website has a countdown. I personally don't believe that this date is correct, but, even if it is, it gives us a few more years. But, he's stating in this article that we've got till 2034, but we don't know who the Antichrist is. I would disagree with both of those things. I think we do, and the person who is going to be the biblical Antichrist is already getting up there in age. So I don't think we have 3,496 days and 23 hours left, personally. But I also wouldn't call it the end of the world. I would just say it's the end of the age. And yes, things will dramatically change at that point, whenever it is, whether it's 3,500 days from now or about 3 years from now. And I thought it was interesting because this countdown on this site reminded me of this countdown on this site, 2028n.com, which is a site that I often refer to. Here's the countdown here. 3 years, 7 months. This is counting down to September of 2028, which, we've been through this many times, and that's the whole basis of the timeline that I put out ages ago now, back in 2019. And then working backwards from this date, September of 2028. So anyway, we'll do another broadcast addressing these things at some point, probably when I get my voice back 100%. But anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that it is there, and this is a good site as well if you want to take a look at it ever. 2028 is the year here. So it's 2028 end. You have to have the word end on there, .com. 2028end.com by my friend Gabriel, who wrote this book right here. Undeniable biblical proof Jesus Christ will return to planet Earth exactly 2,000 years after the year of his death. So that is his book, and he's got a video series as well as DVDs available and things like that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because the countdown on this site reminded me of this one as well. So we'll look at all that real soon. All right, and then this is Trump giving it to the World Economic Forum. Thought it was pretty funny. I watched a big chunk of this speech where he was addressing the World Economic Forum. And yeah, he does kind of lay it out and tell them, basically, we're not doing your BS in so many words, which is good. But he's also trying to be friends with these people, and he has stated in this speech that he gave, when he's answering questions at the end of it, he stated multiple times that he would like to be there. He has been there before. So, he is a Davos attendee. There's really no question about that. And he calls it a beautiful place and lovely people, or whatever it is he says. So he knows a lot of the people here, and I think he even thanked Klaus Schwab. It was really funny seeing Klaus Schwab introduce him at the beginning of the video. Of course, it was all very congenial, and they seemed to get along just fine. So I think that's bad news in a way. But on the other hand, he did pretty much tell them that we're doing our thing, and you're not going to mess with us. He did kind of say it in those terms. So I think it's good and bad in that sense. But you do get a feel for the fact that he is an elbow rubbing type of guy and likes to go rub elbows at Davos. I think that's not really a good thing. But he probably isn't aware of some of the utter tyrannical stuff that they've been up to, is my guess. Because, who knows how much he's really investigated that kind of stuff. Anyway, and then speaking of the WEF, this is a really cool site I wanted to mention. If you want to keep up to date as to the goings-on over there at the World Economic Forum in Davos, this site, rebelnews.com, is a really good one, and they've got some pretty interesting things here. They've got an embedded tweet here. We caught him. Watch what happened when Ezra Levant and I, meaning this guy, Avi Yemeni, when they spotted Larry Larry the Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, on the streets of Davos today. We actually says we finally asked him all the questions the mainstream media refused to ask. And they did. They hit him with literally 70 questions as they're walking down the road. And they stay with him the whole time, even though he's walking fast, trying to get away from them, kind of. And he's got his bodyguard people on each side of him. Again, Larry Fink, from the CEO from BlackRock. And they are peppering him with questions left and right and left. They ask him, they went back. He said he went back and counted up all the questions they asked. They asked 70 questions. He answered how many? 0. Larry Fink literally would not answer any questions at all because he's not used to being questioned. And you can tell that in the video. He's just trying to get away from these guys. Because who are these little peasants, bothering to ask Larry Fink anything? He's been put into power, he thinks. So, anyways, so it's WEFreports.com is where it is. It just takes you to this page on Rebel News. But certainly worth a look. And this is Larry Fink here. These are the two guys that are dogging him. This is Ezra Levant, and then this guy right here is the guy that did this post, this tweet. Avi Yemeni, maybe? But yeah, WEFreports.com. Good stuff. So Rebel News is doing some good work. They're out of Canada. And they're always there. They're always in Davos. They fundraise and get enough money to send a couple guys over there and a couple camera people. And they go over there and get some interesting stuff for sure. So more power to them. I think they're doing good work for sure. Okay. Let's see. LeoHoman.com. We mentioned this article a little bit ago, but further reading if you guys want to check it out. Trump joins tech oligarchs Larry Ellison and Sam Altman to launch Stargate, featuring AI, control grid, and for countless diseases. So needless to say, Leo Homan is not too excited about it. So anyway, there's that article on his site. And then I would say pretty much the same thing is posted here on his Substack as well. This one. But this one above it is not on his site, but it's on his Substack. Trump touts AI and Stargate in speech to World Economic Forum. We're going to make America the world capital of AI and crypto, he says. And he did say that to the WEF, yep. There's a few other articles here about the Stargate situation and so that's on Leo's Substack. And then let's see, naturalnews.com. Look to see if there's anything very interesting. There usually is. Trump should employ anti-drone technology to shoot down any drones flying over U.S. military bases, nuclear facilities, or the White House. So anti-drone technology is what Mike is calling for here. Trump deploys 1,500 troops to southern border and plans for 10,000 in a major security overhaul. Wow. And then forever chemicals in farmland sludge threaten health, EPA admits. And that's something that Mike Adams on Natural News has been talking about for a long time. Matter of fact, he had a movie called Biosludge that talks about that very thing. It's available on his various platforms. Free movie. And then Nebraska moves to ban lab-grown meat, joins growing push against fake food. So that's good news. Susan's asking, why wouldn't he be aware? Isn't that of utmost importance? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. He wouldn't be aware because he's not aware of the tech stuff. He doesn't really understand the tech stuff. One good example of Trump not understanding tech stuff, Trump didn't understand during the campaign that the mainstream media is completely washed out. That no one listens to the mainstream media anymore. They haven't for a long time. But he still does and thinks that most people do. So it took his son, Barron, to tell him, Dad, you got to go on these podcasts like Joe Rogan if you want to access the people. Because that's where people are. That's where people are listening. Whether it's Rogan or whatever other podcasts are out there. And he was not aware that he knew the podcasts were there, but he just thought they were sort of fly-by-night kind of things, and little things, and only a few people were listening. He went on X Spaces with Musk, Trump did, right before the election, about, I don't know, a month or two before. And that interview between Trump and Musk got over 1 billion views, 1 billion. And CNN's peak viewership is like, what, 5 digits, maybe? So they're hardly reaching anyone. So that's kind of the point. And so he really had no clue on tech, is what I'm saying. So yeah, it is very important that he get a clue, and hopefully he will, by the people around him. But again, I think it goes back to the art of the deal, which is what his book was. And then some of the top articles I pulled up on Gateway Pundit. This one I wanted to mention because I remembered that it goes back quite a ways. This is looking to see when this story was. June. So this goes back to June. It says, judge dismisses charges against a hero Texas doctor, this guy, who blew the whistle on sex change program at Texas Children's Hospital after Trump DOJ intervenes. Trump administration filed a motion to dismiss charges against Dr. Ethan Haim, this guy, a hero surgeon who blew the whistle on a sex change program at the Texas Children's Hospital. Trump administration has moved to dismiss the case of Ethan Haim. A few hours later, federal judge dismissed the charges with prejudice. So yeah, that's a story that goes back a little ways. So this is dated June 6th. I think that would be about right. Haim was informed that he was under federal investigation in 2023. Okay, it goes back even further. For leaking documents. But yeah, he was basically just blowing the whistle on this hospital. I think it was in Houston. Looking to see if that's the case. I'm pretty sure it's in Houston. That was doing under the radar type of surgeries, sex change surgeries on little kids. But the whistleblower was the guy who was prosecuted by the Biden administration, of course. The Biden regime unsealed the indictment against Dr. Haim last June. So it goes back to 2023, actually. Dr. Haim was indicted on 4 felony counts. If convicted, he would have spent up to 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 maximum fine. Thankfully, the Trump DOJ intervened to stop this injustice. So that's good news. So he is a free man at this point. That's good. Pure joy. Husband and toddler daughter greet pro-life street preacher Bevelyn Williams after she's released from prison thanks to Trump and his pardon. So again, someone else that he's pardoned who was wrongfully jailed during the Biden regime. Bevelyn Beatty Williams. Bevelyn Beatty Williams is her name. Christians across America rejoice as President Trump has pardoned 23 pro-life protesters. Many of the protesters, like street preacher Bevelyn Beatty Williams, were given harsh prison sentences for daring to preach a message of protecting the life of the unborn. And it says, watch Trump pardon Williams and 22 other pro-life protesters. So there's a video embedded that is a Twitter X video. Bevelyn Beatty Williams was still single when she was arrested for covering a Black Lives Matter mural in front of the Trump Tower with black paint. Bevelyn's actions sent shockwaves through the manufactured movement, as many in the black community were confused by her actions that were tied to her faith, calling the entire BLM movement racist and Marxist, which of course they were. But see, she's supposed to go along with what they're doing because of her skin color. NYPD reluctantly arrested Bevelyn after, according to Beatty, they were given direct orders from former Mayor de Blasio to arrest her for defacing a mural, defacing it, that should never have been allowed to be painted on a public street in the first place. There she is. Back with her family. back with her family. And there's, I retweeted a video on my Twitter X profile of when she got to, be back with her family again. It was awesome. Bevelin was arrested after a Planned Parenthood employee accused her of assaulting her when she opened the door. Bevelin told us her claim was absolutely false and provided us with a video of an NYPD officer defending her against pro-abortion advocates falsely accusing her of blocking the entrance. So that's not what happened at all. It had to do with that mural that shouldn't have been there. In the video, the NYPD officer can be heard telling them that she is there every weekend and that she and her group of supporters never block anyone from entering Planned Parenthood, despite the repeated lies. It was all a lie, but there she is. It was all a lie, but they did it anyway, and the Biden Injustice Department made sure she went to prison, and she literally did. So she missed several months of her daughter's life. There's her daughter and her husband there. So, anyways, again, would the Antichrist do that? Trump was the Antichrist. Would he do that? See to it that a pro-lifer was pardoned and released and back with her family. Anyway, that one's on Gateway Pundit. And then this one too, breaking update. Trump pardons pro-life activists jailed by Biden regime for peacefully protesting abortion clinic. So this is the other 22 people that we're talking about in the last article. So that is people who are protesting at the abortion clinic, which you cannot do during the Biden regime, at least. And if you do, you're going to go to jail. And that's what was going on. Senate confirms John Ratcliffe as Trump's CIA director. So he was confirmed. Hegseth was confirmed. Rubio was confirmed. I think that's 3. I'm not sure if... Kristi Noem was definitely confirmed as well. Yeah. Can't believe some people still think that Trump is the AC. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's done a lot of really good things. Yes, he's done some bad stuff. Yes, he messes up. Yes, this whole mRNA thing with the AI is a complete mess. Yes, he's, kind of dropped the ball a bit with the Putin thing, although I think that hopefully it will be all right. We'll see. But I don't think he's, on the surface, I don't think he's evil. And a lot of people out there think that he's the Antichrist just because it fits into their narrative. That's all you need. Never mind the fact that he doesn't have the imagery and his name doesn't add up to 666 and he doesn't have the heritage, the heredity. He doesn't have the family lineage. But you know what? They're going to write him into their equation anyway because that's what they want to believe. It's fine. CNN host casually mentions that Biden may have secretly pardoned himself before leaving. Yeah, this is we kind of touched on this a little bit in the very first video tonight. Trump recently commented on the fact that of all the pardons issued by Biden, he didn't pardon himself, or did he? Well, we don't know. Says, wouldn't it be nice if journalists actually did their jobs and found out if this happened? Jake Tapper on CNN, again with almost no viewership, was talking to a New York Times journalist this week and casually suggested that it was possible that Joe Biden secretly pardoned himself before leaving office. Sounds like kind of a big deal if it's true. Yeah. So this is the exchange where he says that it's very possible. He says, I mean, it is possible that Biden pardoned himself and we just don't know about it, Tapper said. Who knows? Joe Biden set a lot of precedents on his way out the door. Yeah, he sure did. Broke a lot of laws too, probably. Anyway, it says if it's true Joe Biden did this, we will probably find out eventually. Would anyone really be surprised at this point? I certainly would not be. But, as far as the pardons go, they're pretty much worthless. And the way they're worded, I think could really be taken up by some attorneys who really know what they're doing. And I think you could probably, make the case that they're basically not worth the paper they're written on. And you could take it a step further, which is what I've been saying all along, and that is that Biden was never duly elected. That is coming out more and more. Even Putin's talking about it. Biden was never elected. Because he was never elected, he was not officially ever really the president of the United States, and he's out there pardoning people. You can't pardon somebody unless you're the president, and he was never elected. So anyway, that's kind of what I keep coming back to, but I don't really hear other people talking about that necessarily. They're just going about the legal aspects of the pardons and so forth, and the wording of them, and the dates. And you can't pardon somebody for crimes they haven't actually committed, and that's what all of his pardons were for things that were never even committed. They just said for crimes that may have been committed. Well, you have to name them, and it has to be a federal situation here. And that's not saying that states and internationally that they couldn't go after some of these people who've been given pardons. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it would stand up in a real court of law, although it would stand up probably in a Biden court of law. So we'll see. Delusional attempt to impeach Trump already underway. Yep, pretty much knew this was coming, didn't you? Probably at 12:01, as he was being sworn in on Monday, there were probably already papers being written up to impeach him. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this particular article. Pseudo events. Sure, as political pseudo events go, it's about to be anticlimactic, low profile, and ill-conceived. Says, but the resistance 2.0 has to begin somewhere. It's apparently beginning with a leftist interest group called Free Speech for People. That's what their name is. That's funny. The group, whose website looks like it dates from the era where daily cost site interface looked positively cutting edge, bills itself as a nonpartisan campaign, but is focused on a bevy of leftist issues, including stopping voter suppression, read, preventing anti-voter fraud initiatives, eliminating dark money in politics, unless it comes from George Soros, of course, and tackling corporate abuse of power. It's perhaps best known for its opposition to the 2010 Supreme Court decision in Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, which ruled independent campaign expenditures counted as free speech. But that is the people who are trying to get this first attempt of impeaching Trump underway. So that is, I don't know, I'm looking to see what they're accusing him of. It says right now the group has a more important mission, free speech for the people, which apparently knows about as much about what high crimes and misdemeanors are as it does about using definite articles to make their organization's name sound less awkward, began a campaign to impeach Trump on the day that he was inaugurated. The group's petition is calling on the U.S. Congress to initiate an immediate impeachment investigation into Trump's violations of the emoluments clauses and into his unlawful, corrupt campaign practices. And this is their quote: Trump's return to the White House poses an unprecedented threat to our democracy. Doesn't it always? They always say we have a democracy. Anyway, so the impeachment is already underway, at least to some degree, by this outside source. It's not really the Congress people officially, but you can bet some of them are probably behind it. Anyway, thought that was pretty wild. Not too surprising, actually. Trump tells Vegas supporters that he will terminate the 88,000 IRS agents, or maybe he'll just move them to the border, which we mentioned that earlier. I thought that's pretty funny. After all, they do have arms training now, right? So yeah, move them to the border. Have them protecting the border down there and kill the IRS. That's what I say. ActivistPost.com, our $101 trillion problem. This is the number one tool the elite use to enslave us. Yeah, the money system. So that's what that one's about. Trump's grandiose political centralization scheme, not America first. First in spirit, according to that. Can Trump fix our broken foreign policy? Ron Paul column. Coastal cities along the Gulf of America. Oh, yes, he renamed the Gulf. It's not the Gulf of Mexico anymore. Don't call it that. You would be wrong. It's now the Gulf of America. Too funny. Brace for historic snowfall and blizzard conditions. Yes, that's right. That would be because they always joke about it being, yes, it's the global warming causing all the snow. But actually, it is the chemical ice nucleation that we always talk about on this show. That's what's causing it. And that's what's going on in like Florida and Louisiana and so forth. All right, and then Trump lifts Biden's AI regulation that could have shut us down. So that's one other article. And I thought this one was kind of wild. I actually watched a little bit of this video. This is, again, another person who is hell-bent on proving, I put that in quotes, proving that Trump is the Antichrist. That's what this guy's trying to do, and use Scripture to do it. You know, use your judgment. Feel free to watch it if you want. I think he's full of it, personally. But that is what this article is about. Trump's Saturnalia inauguration masterclass decode. So in other words, he's just making stuff up and trying to fit it into Scripture as much as possible. But, you know, if you want to believe that, that's fine. Go ahead. But it's a free country. At least it used to be. And that's an activist post. It's not really an article. It's just an embedded video here talking about Antichrist Trump. Too funny. And then Trump was asked about cutting Anthony Fauci and John Bolton's security details and replied in the most Trump way possible. This video just made my day. Let's see what it says.
Security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, and I'm wondering if you have any comment on that.
About what?
The security detail for Anthony Fauci was terminated last night, sir. Do you have a comment?
No, I think, you know, when you work for government, at some point your security detail comes off. And, you know, you can't have them forever. So I think it's very standard. If it would be for somebody else, you wouldn't be asking the question. The question is very fair. But, you know, you work for government. We took some off other people, too. But you can't have a security detail for the rest of your life because you worked for government.
Ask for it to be taken off, sir?
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Would you feel partially responsible if something would happen to, say, Dr. Fauci or John Bolton?
No. You know, they all made a lot of money. They can hire their own security, too. All the people you're talking about, they can go out. I can give them some good numbers of very good security people. They can hire their own security. They all made a lot of money. Fauci made a lot of money. They all did. So if they, you know, felt that strongly, I think that certainly I would not take responsibility.
Fauci made a lot of money, he said. Yeah, he sure did. He's still raking it in. He's got those royalty checks coming to him from all those nice guys that he has patents on, right? Man. Yeah. If he wants security detail, he can go hire him himself. And Trump says, I can give him some phone numbers of some pretty good security people. He should know, huh? That is funny. Mic drop. So anyways, that was one of the not to beat articles I pulled up. There's one more. New York Magazine says Kamala talked to Hillary about how to deal with her brutal loss to Trump. Poor Kamala, it says. You can see the violin being played right there. After an embarrassing campaign and devastating loss to Trump, Kamala Harris has reached out to Hillary several times for advice on coping with her devastating defeat, according to a report by New York Magazine. In her final weeks as VP, Harris heard unsolicited advice from donors. She reached out to some carefully selected allies to hear their thoughts, too. Among them was Hillary Clinton, the other would-be first woman president who lost to Trump and who also famously wrestled with how to manage life after her campaign. According to the report, many believe Kamala's defeat was so humiliating that, like Clinton, she will not seek office again. Clinton landed on her feet, though, with a gig at Columbia University as a professor of international and public affairs. Considering Hillary's post-politics career, it seems Kamala might have a bright future selling a memoir that no one will read, or maybe a job as an assistant professor at a community college. Wouldn't that be nice? So sad. Yes, and here's the real answer. Here's the solution to your problems there, Kamala. Alcohol, and lots of it. That is funny. Bottoms up, says. So, anyway, she may have already taken him up on that one. Heard she has a little bit of a drinking issue. Shocking, J6 defendant details horrific abuse and corruption that he suffered while prosecuted under Biden. J6 prisoner Michael Shane Doherty details prosecution by the Biden regime, including extensive legal battle, civil rights abuses, and more. Yeah, I think as these guys are becoming free now and getting back to their families, getting back to their lives, all of this craziness that these poor guys have had to endure over the years is all going to start coming out. And think about, there's 1,500 people that were just pardoned and freed. How many people did we lose? How many people committed suicide who could have been pardoned if they would have made it that far? Lots. I don't know how many, but certainly a lot. I've never seen an official number, but there is one somewhere. A January 6th defendant who was pardoned by the Trump administration along with 1,500 other J6 political prisoners detailed the extensive corruption and abuse he endured during his prosecution. So this is talking about Michael Shane Doherty. And I've heard a couple of other people out there that were J6ers who have been out on the media trail as well, doing some interviews like on InfoWars and other places. So it is really good. I think I'm glad that information's coming out as to what these poor guys have had to put up with for the last several years. Screaming eagles deployed to U.S. border as race to repair national security intensifies. Comes as Border Czar Tom Homan confirmed that ICE agents launched nationwide large-scale raids targeting criminal illegal aliens. There's an urgent need to repair national security following 4 years of globalist control in the White House, which resulted in an illegal alien invasion through the southern border. This prompted Trump to deploy thousands of U.S. troops to the border last week, including the 101st Airborne Division, known as the Screaming Eagles. So how about that? Fort Campbell. Not all that far from where I am, actually. So yeah, that's good. That's good. Secure the border. Step one. We are engaged in fifth-generation warfare. There are insidious powers infiltrating the Trump administration in league with world government that's hell-bent on AI-driven social engineering and misinformation. So, for you guys who either don't like Alex or don't trust him or whatever, or just assume that he's on the Trump bandwagon for everything, you would be wrong, because he has been front and center out there talking about this whole Stargate thing and the AI and all this nonsense, and how he believes it is a really, really terrible move. And so I think that's good that that's all coming out. You got people like that talking about this situation. So this is talking about PSYOP and the internet. The use of the internet jump-started the information age, began in the late 90s. The use of the internet is revolutionizing our lives. New improvements of higher access speeds and larger bandwidths will make the first decade of the millennium on this planet an amazing place. The internet can be a tool to revolutionize PSYOP. There are 4 areas in which the internet can be used to revolutionize PSYOP. These are to establish a PSYNET coordination, implementation, and analysis of efficiency and effectiveness of a PSYOP campaign. How about that? Yeah, all because we have a faster internet. Fifth generation warfare is ramping up in the war for your mind. It says there are powers infiltrating the Trump administration in league with world government, hell-bent on social engineering and true misinformation, guided by AI, artificial intelligence. It must be curbed and not given the keys to the city, or humanity will be greatly impacted. Yeah. So we'll see where it goes, but that's an InfoWars article, and then one more from there. Oh, this is the video I showed at the beginning of the show tonight. Nailed it. Newsom mocked with hilarious impression of bizarre interview after California wildfire disaster. So this guy was hilarious. If you missed the beginning of the show, I played this video, so you have to wait until the rerun, or you can go pull it up yourself. This is on Twitter. Valuetainment Media. It's hilarious. Governor Newsom was mercilessly ridiculed in a satirical skit by Valuetainment Media, poking fun at his recent interview that he gave in the wake of his terrible response to the California wildfires. So, yeah. Joe Rogan talks about Governor Newsom's viral shimmy dance. Yeah, so he's got a dance and Trump has a dance now. Of course, that's not actually Newsom. It's a guy pretending to be Newsom. That's why it's funny. He does kind of look like him, though. Good stuff. All right, modernity.news video. I won't bother playing this, but this is kind of what we talked about earlier. Davos globalists admit that we have lost to Trump. It's a phenomenon we shouldn't try to understand, only in the terms we traditionally accept. A panel of globalists, the WEF, in Davos remarkably admitted that Trump and his America First movement has defeated their agenda. In a segment of their discussion focusing on Trump's election victory, former Defense Department official Graham Allison, now a professor at Harvard, remarked, "We shouldn't normalize Trump. Trump has done something no person in the world has ever done before. A dead man, a dead politician, has risen. This is the greatest comeback in political history for a politician, and therefore, he thinks he can do anything." See, that kind of comes back to the whole AI Stargate thing. He thinks he can do anything. There's a supreme confidence now about that. So I don't think that that guy is wrong. I think that he's right about that. So it's a phenomenon we shouldn't try to understand only in the terms we traditionally accept. We should say something strange, new, and amazing is happening here, and we should study it, he says. So they just want to study it, but they're admitting defeat. But they always come back, don't they? The globalists, I mean. So that's a modernity. And then one more from there. Watch. Says, watch, Trump eviscerates woke LA mayor to her face. President Trump was in California Friday to inspect the damage from the fires, and he didn't hold back in slamming public officials, including the woke mayor of LA, over basic failures and subsequent bureaucratic nonsense. During a press conference, Trump blasted Karen Bass, asserting that residents who have lost their homes in the Palisades should not have to wait for government permits and assistance to clean up their lots and start again. When residents complain that they have been prevented from getting started cleaning up, Bass said the number one thing we are going to do immediately, and you'll see this happen, is clear out the debris. We're going to move as fast as we can, but we want you to be safe. We want you to be back in your homes immediately. You mean the ones that have burned down? And it says, Trump interjected, but the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't cost a lot, adding, you should let them do it because by the time you hire contractors, it's going to be 2 years. People are willing to get a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out, Trump continued, urging, there's not that much left. It's all incinerated. And, it's just going to take a lot of time if you do it. Trump further emphasized that people don't want to wait around for 7 months till the city hires some demolition contract that's going to charge them $25,000, which that's true. That's what would happen. And you have to have the proper permits and so forth. It's a mess. It is California after all, right? You have emergency powers just like I do. I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also, Trump lectured Bass, who claims she has done that. So here's the video here if you guys want to have a look. But yeah, pointed out that people are saying that they've been told that they will have to wait up to 18 months for permits to clean up. They need a permit to clean up their lot where their house has been completely destroyed and it's nothing but some white ash now. 18 months. Well, of course, we know why that is. They want to build a smart city in that same area, don't they? Anyway, probably no mention of the smart city, but it is interesting that he's confronting her and telling her what to do. I think that's good. All right, and then vaccineimpact.com. The site was not really working right last week, but this week it is. So some of the most recent headlines here. Jesus' teaching on family versus Christian teaching on family, polar opposites. So that's the newest article on here. Trump invokes emergency powers for warrantless immigration raids on homes, churches, and schools as private prison stock soars. Let's see. Look at Trump 2.0, Zionist expansion, and more. Isn't he this guy? Yep. I mean, that's my two main arguments as well against what he's doing. But for the most part, I mean, he's already hit the ground running. He's done some incredible things already. So yes, you have to take the good with the bad, unfortunately. But we have to prevent it from the bad going to worse, if that makes sense. Is digitization catastrophic for civilization? Is the next article. And these other ones I think I mentioned before, actually. So that's on Vaccine Impact. And then Israel 365 News, the article that I pulled up from there. Israel praises Trump's, quote, excellent plan to relocate the Gazans. He has an excellent plan. They're all about that. It's called Gaza 2030. And remember, he likes to build hotels and build new high-rises and stuff. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he was all for cleaning out Gaza. That's what it's saying here. Trump on Saturday said he would like Jordan, Egypt, and other Arab nations to absorb Palestinian refugees to clean out Gaza. I'd like Egypt to take people. I don't think that's going to happen. They've already closed their border from letting the Palestinians in. Trump said during a 20-minute question-and-answer session with reporters aboard Air Force One, you're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out the whole thing and say, it's over. So how about that? Sounds like he wants to give Gaza back to 100%, give Gaza to Israel. Toward this end, Trump spoke with King Abdullah II of Jordan and planned to speak on Sunday with the president of Egypt. He complimented Jordan for having successfully accepted Palestinian refugees. And he told the king, I'd love for you to take on more, because I'm looking at the whole Gaza Strip right now, and it's a mess. It's a real mess. Yeah, who created that mess, Trump? Israel did. They're killing everybody. And again, you have just vast amounts of rubble in Gaza, and many bodies are still left in the rubble. They can't go in and get them. A lot of the people that are in the rubble, they can't go in and get them because they keep getting bombed by the IDF. So anyway, looks like Trump is all about relocating the Gazans and rebuilding Gaza. So not too surprised about that. We know how pro-Israel he is. He thinks they are the people of God, but he would be wrong. I want to be a peacemaker, stop all wars, Trump hails hostage releases in inaugural address. Yeah, he did say that. Incoming president promises a new golden age as he takes the oath for historic second term. New York City rabbi offers prayer for remaining 94 hostages held by the terror groups in Gaza. This is on Times of Israel. So he wants to be a peacemaker. Well, let's hope he lives up to that. I hope that he is. But who knows? Who knows where we're headed? But Israel does not want peace. We can pretty much honestly say that. They want to take over as much as possible. It's called the Greater Israel Project, isn't it? GeoWatch for this week. Global Alert News. January 25th. New Orleans has seen more snow than Alaska's biggest city so far this winter. It's all natural, isn't it? And so lovely. The Fox report continues with this. The Big Easy has also received more snowfall since the start of meteorological winter than many cold weather cities across the country, including Philadelphia and New York. But even more alarming than that, while there were blizzard warnings in New Orleans, or as we say in the South, Nolans, there were above freezing temperatures with rain, not just in regions of Alaska, but also in Greenland, Iceland, and Siberia. Welcome to the world of climate engineering. Yeah, New Orleans chemical snow blizzard. So if you didn't know about the chemical snow, chemical ice nucleation happening in Louisiana, that's what this is talking about. And make sure you have a listen to the broadcast. It's embedded here. GeoWatch, Global Alert News for this week. And then the scheduled weather looks a bit different than last week. We're back to warmer, above normal temperatures in the southeast where I am, and then pretty warm in most of the rest of the east, and then still cold out west, at least below average temperatures. So anyway, that is January 31st to February 4th. So we got the half and half thing going on. It seems to be how they like to leave it. It's usually flip-flopped one way or the other. You know, the west is, in this case, cool, and the east is warm, but usually it's the other way. East is cool, and the west is warm. So anyway, that is the scheduled weather coming up for the next 10 days or so. And I think that was the end of the... yeah, I didn't have anything new there. Let's look at the most recent posts here on X. This is the Valuetainment Media. So if you want to see this video, if you haven't seen it, or if you missed the start of the show, it is embedded there on my Twitter page. It's really, really funny. And you can also share it there as well. I was going to refresh this, though. I want to show you guys something. Something I came across really interesting on here. I just found it right before we were going live tonight, and I wanted to mention it because you guys might want to share this. From what I can tell, this is 100% legit. At first, my first reaction was, okay, well, this is one of those AI movies. But it's not. Let me play it. Let me play just a little bit of this here. Here you can see it. It says 1959 short Disney film. The whole thing's about 10 minutes long. Disney film, and it literally is a Walt Disney film on weather modification. And it also talks a lot about satellites and weather satellites. Says that people think we never made it real for 65 years. So what they're saying here is that they knew 65 years ago that weather modification was real. And in fact, they made a Disney film about it. And that's what this is. Somebody uploaded this. See, look at this guy's monitor. Somebody uploaded this whole video. I found the whole thing on YouTube. Now, this particular one that we're watching right now while I'm talking, I've got the sound turned off because there's music in it because it's a film, and I don't want to get the live stream stopped because of the music. I don't know who owns the music. I didn't bother investigating that part. But yeah, this is actually a Disney film. It's legit. And if you watch it, it really does look like a period piece from 1959. It's not an AI movie. And the video that I've linked to right here is the full film. And you can watch the full thing. This right here that we're watching right now is only 2 minutes of the 10-minute film. But it's really worth a watch. It talks about weather modification in great detail and seeding the clouds. That's what's going on in this picture there. And look, there's the antennas like HARP doing their thing. It's crazy. And this movie is not an AI movie. I keep saying that because the movie was uploaded 9 years ago to YouTube. And that's what I've linked to. That's the video that I found. The full-length version of this film is about 10 minutes or so long, and it was uploaded 9 years ago to YouTube. They didn't have AI movies then. And you can kind of tell, when you watch AI videos and movies, you can tell, if you know what to look for, it's pretty easy to tell those type of films versus a real one, and this is the real deal. So I thought it was really interesting. And yeah, Disney's been wicked they have been wicked from the beginning. I thought it was really interesting and certainly worth a watch and a share if you guys want. 1959 Disney film about the future of weather mod. Pretty wild. And it's actually, let me click on it here. I wanted to see what the name of the film is. It takes a minute to load because I've got about 100 tabs open here on my browser. Plus I'm doing a live stream, so it just takes a minute. So I've got it muted. I wanted to see what the actual name of the film is. If you want to, see, there it is, Disney. If you want to look it up, you can certainly do so on your own. There it is. Eyes in Outer Space. A science factual, not science fiction, presentation. And see how it's got the old style credits and stuff? That's all real. So this is, somebody has recreated this film. It almost looks like they took the film and just played it on a screen and then videoed it with another camera or something. I don't know. But again, I can't really show you the whole thing on this live stream because it is it's got all the music in there. I can show you the video, no problem at all, but the music is the issue. So see what they're talking about. What's funny is in this film, they are rescuing the people from a dreaded hurricane. And these few guys who are working for the government are going to steer the hurricane away from the populated area so that it doesn't impact Miami. And I'm like, what a joke. If anything, the government would be steering it into the massive population centers to cause as much destruction as possible. That's clearly what they would be doing. But no, this movie is portraying it the other way. They're saying how benevolent and wonderful weather mod is and how that the government would only use it to save lives. And they're talking about a hurricane impacting the East Coast. They talk about torrential rains over Kansas and different things. And it's just really funny. I thought it was wild that how close it is to actual reality, except that you have to take the benevolent message of this film and flip it around 180 degrees to get the truth, because the government is doing all this stuff, but they are wanting maximum harm, not maximum help for people. And a lot of this, though, is about having satellites in space, which, you know, if you look back, 1959, that wasn't really a thing yet, right? Sputnik was first. I forget what year that was. But, yeah, here they are steering the hurricane away from it. They didn't blow it apart. They just literally moved it away from the land. I just thought it was really interesting, and I just kind of came across it earlier tonight and thought I would share it with you guys. Pretty wild. Wild stuff. Let me see what you guys are saying in chat, and we can wrap it up. It's getting late here. It's almost 1. Surprised my voice has held out, but I guess it has so far. So Miss Emily is here. Let me see what she says about her dad. Let's see. She says Dave Sparks, that's the team who is going to go to where the crash site is, where Emily's dad's crash site is. If you missed last week's show, Emily was in chat and mentioned there the first time that I'd seen it, where she was talking about, yes, they had discovered her dad's missing airplane. So she's saying Dave Sparks and his team are said to recover whatever they can of him tomorrow, since the authorities all wanted to leave him up there until spring. Okay. They found his plane smashed into Mount Jefferson, Nevada. Still praying for a miracle until I can't anymore, Emily says. Yeah. Okay. So, and the thing that I remember checking out first was, where in the world is Mount Jefferson? Because I didn't know where it was. And it's kind of in the middle of the state. If you look at Nevada, Mount Jefferson is about in the middle, give or take a little. And that's where his plane was found, which was far from where everyone thought he was. So that's kind of a huge question mark, unless I'm missing something here. Miss Emily, let me know. That's still a huge question mark, isn't it? That how did he get 300 miles from where he was supposed to be, and why? So I don't know. I think there's still some big questions here as to why he was there and how he could end up, 275 to 300 miles away from where they thought he was, which is why it took so long to find him. Anyway, yeah, so let me see if she's saying anything else here. We have no idea why he was there or why his radar went off close to Vegas. Yeah, so he left North Las Vegas, and then his transponder went off pretty quickly after that, and that's why they thought he just disappeared, maybe turned it off, or whatever, and turns out it went off, and then he went almost another 300 miles. It's crazy. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Miss Emily, we're still praying for you, so hopefully you'll have some more answers tomorrow. I'm glad that Mr. Sparks and his team are going to be able to help. That's awesome. Yeah, because, again, you leave it up to the government, and all they can do is delay and wring their hands and say, hey, there's nothing we can do, and you're on your own. So leave it up to the private citizens to get the job done. So that's good. Anyway, yeah, she says, so glad that he pardoned the J6ers. Those people should have never been locked up to begin with. Way long overdue. People saying, I refuse to do any DNA testing, would rather die. Yep. Yeah, we were talking about the Stargate and the AI CNR stuff earlier. We talked about that quite a bit tonight, which that's a total nightmare, and I am not for it. I don't even do screenings because I would refuse any chemo or therapies recommended by Western medical practices. Yep. I know a lot of people that think that same thing, and it's been proven fact that some of these cancer screenings actually kick up the cancer. That you don't have cancer, and then you go do a screening, and then all of a sudden you do. So, I mean, if you're staying away from these guys, I think you probably have a better chance of not having that happen. But yeah, it's certainly interesting for sure. Susan says, for the POTUS to laugh at several $1 billion of that being peanuts while the average Americans can't afford to feed their family is repulsive. Yeah, I agree. I thought that was not very good humor on his part, where he asked publicly how much money he made off of the meme coin that was out days before, maybe the day of, I guess, the inauguration, and the guy told him several $1 billion, sir, he said. And then he kind of makes a joke about it like it's nothing. But, keep in mind, he did run the campaign out of his own pocket and to some degree, and then he had help, had a lot of people contributing. So he had help that way. And then he had all the lawfare against him, though, that was millions of dollars. So, I mean, if he's made it back and then some already, then I think he's probably in pretty good shape. So, yeah, you can't really laugh at that when that's peanuts. He's calling it peanuts. Not good. So, yeah, you think he would be able to learn to pick his jokes a little bit better, maybe, on that kind of stuff with people hurting. Marty says, I watched Chinatown last night. Same stuff's been going on since the 30s. Chinatown was one of my favorite movies for years, especially as a kid. I really liked that movie a lot. And, yeah, that was a lot about the, not really fires, but the water flow and getting water into Los Angeles. That's really what a lot of it is about. If you've never seen Chinatown with Jack Nicholson in it, it's an awesome movie. It's really, really good, and gives you the 1930s Hollywood. Pretty interesting. So yeah, that's neat that you watched that. I haven't seen that in years. Can't believe some people think Trump is the AC, which there's a lot of people that think that. And then Martino here says, I believe Donald Trump is the AC. 45 and 47 sums it up to 9 and 11. And Revelation 9:11 has Abaddon, a bad dawn, and Stargate is the next warp speed times 1,000, and his hand was not on the Bible. Okay, I get it. His speech was 2,888 words, and Strong's G2888 is a world ruler, an epithet of Satan, ruler. I'm aware of his hubris. I don't believe any of sorts of I don't believe he's any sort of savior. I don't think he fits the role of the AC. We all have our thoughts. Iron sharpens iron. Watchman's Cry has a 10-part doc. Okay, yeah, Watchman's Cry. Yeah, I know who that guy is. He's pretty good. That's so nuts. Disney's been wicked from the beginning. Yeah, I know. Talking about the video that we were looking at clips of. Yeah, as far as Trump the AC, I mean, I get what you're saying. That's a lot of little nuances and stuff like that you can kind of massage and work it in. And personally, I don't think that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. And most of that goes back to looking at biblically what the Antichrist is supposed to be about. And you have the number 666 first and foremost. That is the number related to the name. And he doesn't have that. He also does not have the lineage, as we mentioned earlier. He doesn't have the lineage. And he also does not have the imagery that's talked about in Revelation, especially Revelation 13, I think it is. Anyway, but, we can agree to disagree. I mean, we'll see, right? If he really is, then we will see that happen. We will see that unfold. I don't think that the Antichrist would do all these really great things that he's doing right now, unless I'm wrong. Was he trying to trick us maybe or something? I don't know. But I always kind of come back to the whole idea that even if you take all that I just said and throw that out, why would God trick Christian believers who really like Donald Trump and think that he's not necessarily a savior, but he's going to restore the country to what they remember? And he claims to, and just in his first few days in office, he's already attempting to do that, it seems, unless he's tricking everybody somehow. Why would God, though, trick Christian believers into putting their trust into Donald Trump, another human being? Why would God trick those believers who believe in his son, Jesus Christ, into believing that Donald Trump is who he says he is, and when he's secretly the Antichrist? Why would God do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. So even if you just don't believe any of the stuff about the imagery or the lineage or the 666, why would God trick Christian believers who believe in his son and who also trust Donald Trump is the person who's going to help restore this country? Not as a savior, but just the person who can get it done for the moment. And also who has been spared at least a couple times of being shot at. So I don't know. I think, to me, the whole thing's interesting. We will find out. We can agree to disagree. It's like the whole flat earth thing. We can agree to disagree. We don't have to, we're not a cult. We don't have to all think exactly the same. And hopefully you won't just get mad at some of the stuff I said and then leave and never come back. That's what I don't want to do that to people. I want to hear what you're saying, but I also want to refute anything that I feel like doesn't really, to me, make any sense. And, again, we will see. We will see. Just like flat earth. If the earth's really flat, we'll find out eventually, won't we? But it's not really a salvific issue, as my friend Timothy Alberino would say. It's not a salvific issue, meaning this whole thing with Trump, it's about Jesus. Jesus is the salvific issue, not Trump. And so if Trump is the Antichrist, he will reveal himself someday, and I think it will be obvious at that point. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I'm trying to explain it the best I can. Let's see here. If the world's about to burn, what benefit is it for America to, quote, prosper? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think most people believe that the world is about to burn. I don't think so. I think most people think that we have decades and decades more, and that, down the line somewhere, when people are first raptured, now going back to that again. No, down the line somewhere, then all the end time stuff might play out. I don't think people really have much concept as to where we are on the biblical timeline. And again, a lot of people just simply don't believe that. So as far as what benefit would it be for America to prosper, I think people want to have some hope. And I think the Biden regime destroyed a lot of people's hope. So, it really makes you, if you're living in a place that is not the way you remember it being, which we all were for the last few years, You want to see it restored. You can't help yourself. And again, I really hope I'm wrong about the whole date issue, and I'd be totally happy to be wrong about it. And, we'll see. Again, it will all play out. So, but to me, yeah, it's like you want to see the country that you remember kind of restored so that your kids can enjoy that country, if that makes sense. You don't want to see it go from bad to worse, which I think is certainly where it would be headed if Kamala would have gotten in there. That's just my opinion. So anyways, okay. Well, I think that was it for tonight for me. I'm probably going to lose my voice here very soon anyways, but I wanted to mention a couple of the last things here, diamonddisk.substack.com, and that's the link in the upper right corner up there in the black box. So that's how you can sign up to get on the email list, and I'll send out on Tuesday, I'll send out the full list that has this show, has all the links to the uncensored version of this show on Facebook, and it will be back on Twitter as well, Twitter X, and then it will also be on Rumble and BitChute and Brighteon. I'll send out the links for all that, plus all the article links. So that'll all be in there. And then Subscribestar is the best way to help out me, as far as if you want to help financially with what I'm doing. I really would appreciate that. I've got a few subscribers. I think I've got 6 here. 6 here on Subscribestar, and then also like 13, I think, on Substack. People who are paying a little bit, and that really helps offset the cost of my time and software and hardware and things like that I'm invested in as far as putting the show out. So I spend many, many hours every week on this show, believe it or not. You might not know it, but I do. So, and then this is the Diamond Report store, which I've mentioned many, many times. Stickers and T-shirts and hats and all kinds of interesting stuff. I've got the Conspiracy Analyst. That is something that people seem to like. So that's good. And then Diamond Report mouse pads and End Times Dates mugs and water bottles and all kinds of stuff. So those are ways you can contribute to the show as well in a small way. And again, every way is definitely remembered and definitely very much appreciated. The other new thing that I mentioned last week for the InfoWars fans out there, you can support both InfoWars and the Diamond Report by going to thealexjonesport.com/The Diamond Report. If you put The Diamond Report at the end of that, then I would get a small percentage of anything you buy from that store. Of course, if you're not an Alex fan or a InfoWars fan, it wouldn't matter. But you can see that there are many very interesting things, including shirts, hats, supplements, hoodies, flags, and decals. So all kinds of stuff. So we got the frogs, we got the flags, we got all kinds of stuff. So I would appreciate that very much if you happen to be in the market for buying any of the InfoWars products. Just put in thealexjonesport.com/The Diamond Report, and I will get credit for a little bit of that sale. So thank you very much if you happen to do that. And then, this is the YouTube channel, Take It to the Lord in Prayer, End Times Dates. And then Rumble as well, Diamond Disc on Rumble and BitChute, as well as Brighteon. And then Miss Emily posted the link in for Band in the chats, both in the YouTube chat and the Rumble chat. So links are there, and feel free to join the group if you'd like. Get a few new people every week or two, it seemed like, and we're up to 94 people. That's good. And then this is where we just get together and share information and thoughts and ideas and links and all kinds of stuff in there. So that's a fun place to be as well. So the band group is the link is band.us/@the Diamond Report. So that's where that is. And then I guess that's it. That's it for me tonight. So let's see. The next show will be, Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. My favorite holiday. So 2/2/25 will be the next one. And I'll see what I can come up with as far as celebrating Groundhog Day. Now, I just like that movie. That's really the main thing for me. But that will be the next show. Will be 10 p.m. Central Time on 2/2/25. So we will see you guys then. Yeah, that was a great movie. It was one of my favorites. What else is being said here? We have to support one another and hold each other up. A collective goes a long, long way, Susan says. Yeah, thanks. And then Emily says, much love and blessings to you and your family. And then Robin Williams' movie Patch Adams is a great referral for any old movie watchers. Okay, yeah, I forgot about that movie. Yeah. Well, thanks, Susan. I appreciate that. Yeah, and you guys can, link to things and mention things like that in the band group as well. So many of the folks that are in chat tonight are in the band group. So if you're not, then you certainly can be, and it's free to join. So appreciate that very much. And then as far as me, definitely keep praying for my voice, and hopefully it'll be a little bit better next week. It's better this week than it was last week, so that's good. But continue to pray for me if you don't mind, and then mostly for health, I guess. That's probably the main thing. Everything else seems to be going okay in my world at the moment, so that's good. But the main thing is pray for Miss Emily and her family and everything they got going on there. And it sounds like they'll have some more definitive answers in the coming days. So that's good. And then as far as the show goes, hopefully you guys will be back next week. We'll do it all again then. So blessings to you all. Love you all. And make sure you keep Jesus front and center in your life. It will make all the difference in your life for sure. Love you all. We'll see you again real soon.